Ayy, look, yeah, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the New Media Podcast. I'm your host, Ya. We hope you enjoyed the last episode because, as always, today's going to be an even better episode. I got the whole crew with me. Everybody's in the house today, and today we are not talking about the NFL. We are talking about the NBA. The NBA season is upon us. It's right around the corner. By the time you're listening to this episode, it'll be the first day of the NBA season. The NBA season will be kicking off on Tuesday. And, of course, we're excited to watch it all and get the season going. And today we got a lot on the agenda to talk about. We're going to be talking about the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. We'll go ahead and give our award predictions, our finals predictions, our team predictions, and some hot takes. For the East and West, we'll do standing predictions, over, under, win totals, and we'll talk about some breakout players for both conferences. But of course, before we jump into all of that, temperature check. How's everybody doing?
It feels good to talk about NBA. It's been, somewhat up and down off season. Some moments of a lot going on, and other moments of just quietness. And it's good to get back to NBA. And I'm ready to start this regular season, man.
Yeah, a couple of y'all had some slow off seasons. A couple of y'all missed out some star players. A couple of guys waited a couple of months for a nice top 15, top 12 NBA All-Star player. They didn't get another guy. I don't know what he's doing with his team up there on the left. They came into this offseason. They didn't do anything. They came back with the same roster. Hey, they're trash. But my team, we came back. We reloaded this offseason. Feel very confident going into the season, man. Very, very confident. Very confident. So, waited this summer for basketball. I'm glad it's back, man. Let's get it started.
Season hasn't even started yet, and you're over here talking shit, man. Like, well, what's new, bro? You Laker fans need to be humbled.
You got to start it off, immediately. You got to get my jabs in.
Fair enough, man. With the NBA season coming around, it's my favorite time of the year, man. My favorite sports back. So looking forward to watching it all. Looking forward to talking about it all. But let's go ahead and jump right into it. We'll go ahead and start off with the Eastern Conference. And the first thing that we'll talk about in this episode will be the standing predictions. As always, we'll go ahead and give our predictions 1 through 10. After we discuss and, talk about everybody's rankings, we'll talk about the teams that, are outside of the bubble from 11 through 15. It's a great way to kick us off. Abdi, you're muted.
Muted, big boss.
Of course. All right. I'll get us started off. So at number 1, I have Milwaukee. At number 2, number 1, it's 59 and 23. At number 2, I got Boston with going 53 and 29. And then from here, everybody's basically sub 50. So Cleveland at number 3 with 49 wins. Philly at 4 with 48 wins. Indiana at 5 with 46 wins. New York at 6 with 46 wins. Miami at 7 with 45 wins. Atlanta at 8 with 44 wins. Brooklyn at 9 with 40 wins. And Toronto at 10 with 39 wins.
Okay. I'm actually going to rock with, Boston number 1. I think they go 57 and 25. And then I got Milwaukee. I feel like, they always tend to, they're going to keep their stars out. They're going to rest Giannis. They know they got to, prepare for the bubble, not the bubble, but the playoffs. The last couple of years, they've been getting injured going into the playoffs, some players here and there. So I got them sitting at 55 and 29. And then third, go rest of these teams. I think Cavs, they top 50 wins here. And then Philly, I think Philly tops 50 wins. And then I had Indiana at 5. I think they go 47 wins. 6, I got Miami, I think 45. 7 and 8, it's going to be between Atlanta and New York. I think I got New York right there sitting at 40, 45, 44, and then Atlanta right there at subpar 40, 41, 42 wins. And then you guys hit to 10 or to 8?
To 10.
10.
To 10. And then 9 and 10 are going to probably round out with Brooklyn, and then probably sitting 39, 38 wins. And then the last 10 seed I probably got. Who is there? I said the Pacers, right?
Yeah. You could go Chicago.
I'm not saying Chicago. I don't think that's one of the teams I got tanking. I think I'm going to go Toronto right here. I'm in Toronto. Yeah, I'm going to go Toronto right here. I think they end up 36, 35 wins. The East is, it's coming pretty nasty. Pretty nasty towards the end of the last 8 to 9 teams.
All right, all right. So for me, I have at number 1, I got the Boston Celtics. Didn't necessarily put any records on it. We'll talk about the wins and losses when we do the over and unders. At number 2, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. At number 3, I have the 76ers. At number 4, I have the Knicks. At 5, I have the Cavs. At 6, I have the Pacers. At 7, I have the Brooklyn Nets. At 8, I have the Miami Heat. And at 9 and 10, rounding out my top 10, I have the Atlanta Hawks sitting at 9 and the Washington Wizards sitting at number 10. And so it looks like we all relatively have the same 10 teams, but for the most part, just kind of all out of different order. Um, let's go. Let's see. Sixers. I have him at 3. Big H, you have him where?
4.
4. And Abdi had him at 5, I think.
I have him at 4.
4. Okay.
Yeah, I have him at 4. I mean, I can't lie. You including Washington is kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Let's
Washington
put that out.
Washington was another team that I had that had tanking as well. I don't know how you put them at 10. I feel like there's a couple other teams that
10
can be
is
better.
kind of crazy.
I think they're not good enough to. They're not going to be that bad to tank. But there's also the teams that are outside of the bubble for me, which are the Raptors, the Hornets, the Magic, the Pistons, and the Bulls. Like I think the Wizards are all better than those teams comfortably.
I don't know
don't
about
think
that.
so.
I don't know about that. I wouldn't know about the Magic.
I don't think they're better than. Oh my god,
I like the
man!
Magic and the
Now that
Pistons.
you
I
mentioned the
wouldn't-
Magic, they're 100% better than the
I
Washington
I
Wizards.
100%
100%,
the Magic over the Wizards, bro. 100%.
100%.
To me, the only thing appealing on the Wizards squad is Jordan Poole and somewhat. Obviously, you're gonna get Kuzma getting his 19, 20 points, but other than that, there's nothing really that translates to winning basketball on that team. They have a bunch of young players. I mean, I don't know. To me,
I mean,
Magic,
Jordan Poole's going to be an all-star this year, though. So it's like, and the thing is, it's not like the Wizards have to compete with like any team that's going to put up like 40 wins. The team that gets this 10 seed is probably going to have 37, 38 wins at most. And so they're not really competing with anybody for that spot. The
I don't
Raptors,
see how they're going to be better than the Magic, though.
they can compete. I think the Magic can compete for the spot. I think the Hornets are a team that can compete for the spot too if they're able to stay healthy.
that's another team for me that I had tank.
I have them tanking. Not gonna lie to you, bro.
Not mess with the Hornets this year. But Detroit, though, I feel like Detroit could be a better team than the Wizards.
Oh, there's another one too. I'm not gonna lie
I
to you.
feel like they got the young.
The East have a lot of like flyer teams that really shouldn't be competing, but they kind of have to pick what side of the fence they want to stay on. The one team that I believe is probably won't finish like at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, but will probably finish somewhere between 11 through 15 is definitely the Toronto Raptors. I hope none of you guys have them in your guys' top 10.
I have them. I think on the brink of my top 10. Like I have them right next to Brooklyn.
I had
These
them
guys-
down there with Brooklyn and Atlanta and fucking.
Yeah, I have them near Atlanta and Brooklyn.
These guys are bound to blow it up at the trade deadline. I can't see these guys continuing.
I feel like they already had their chance to do that and they haven't. So at this point, they're just gonna.
I feel like if we get to that trade deadline and you can tell like this team is not going to make the playoffs or anything like that, or they're not even like close, I think Siakam's going to be gone. I really believe
Siakam, they're going to try to get whatever they can for both of their players. The price just won't be four first-round picks anymore.
Yeah, but still, though, you can still rebuild a lot of picks with those two players. You'll get a lot. But yeah, Toronto's on the brink right there but at the same time, they low-key.
They had their chance to move Siakam this offseason. This entire rumor about him going to Atlanta, and things kind of just died down after that. We might see after the trade deadline because this is his final year, but even then, I don't know. Masai hasn't really proven otherwise that he's just willing to give up Siakam. I more than likely see Siakam end up signing an extension in the summer. Like that's just or signing a new contract in the summer. That's what I end up seeing happening.
Do you think OG Anunoby gets moved?
He might be the guy that ends up getting moved, but I like with the Masai. I just don't know. Like he's had multiple opportunities to move these guys. He's had multiple opportunities to blow up this team. So it seems like he's insistent. Like his mentality has been, and he's just laid straight from him that he wants to be similar to like the Miami Heat. He wants to emulate what the Heat do. And I guess his plan is just keep his guys. Fred was really the only guy I don't think he was extremely fond of. So that's why he had no problem with Fred being gone.
Fair enough. Two teams that I do feel like we have to talk about in the Eastern Conference. One being the Indiana Pacers, a team that was on the brink of being a good team last year up until Halliburton got injured. I got him at 6. It sounds like you guys had him somewhere in the top 5, if
I have
I'm not
him at
mistaken.
5.
I had him at 5.
5?
I think they could be 4. I'm not gonna lie if they can stay healthy.
They're going to be a very fun team to watch.
But
you
is
have Halliburton.
fun going to translate to wins though?
For sure. I mean, last year they were I think on pace at the 6th seed when Halliburton was healthy. Obviously, the Eastern Conference has improved a bit towards the top side, but even then, there's just a bunch of middling teams. Like there's a Miami Heat who haven't improved much. The Knicks have stayed relatively the same. They're just going to be in that same area with the Knicks. Brooklyn Nets. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to have high hopes for a team with Mikal Bridges as their number 1 player. And then, of course, the rest of the East, you have Toronto. Like, I feel like where it stands for the Indiana Pacers, they can take this leap. You know, Tyrese Halliburton, he's an all-star. He's an all-NBA level player as a point guard. And then, of course, you have Ben Mathurin. You have Buddy Hield. You have a bunch of pieces that they traded for. They have Obi Toppin. They got a lot of. They picked up a lot of pieces. They picked up a lot of pieces. So, you know, the team looks like it's going to mesh. They have a lot of areas that they've improved on. So, I think they can definitely make a leap.
I think they're a very well-rounded team, especially the starting 5 and then the bench pieces. Getting Brown, getting Obi Toppin to come off the bench, and then having Buddy Hield coming off the bench or Ben Mathurin, one of the two coming off the bench. They have a solid bench unit. You have a solid starting unit. So I feel like if they're healthy and no injuries, they're gonna mesh very well. I feel like they can make a run. I feel like they can get that 4th seed in the East too. Push that 50-game win. So
you guys think they're a better team than the Knicks?
I think they're relatively around the same for me. I think the Knicks are going to be a very solid regular season team. Like, say what anybody can say.
I kind of put the Knicks at 8. I forgot about them. They got to go higher. I feel like the Knicks this year, another one of those teams that can be.
Everybody can say what they want about Julius Randle in the playoffs. That's fine, but in the regular season, the guy performs. He's constantly playing. And the thing about Julius Randle is he has crazy durability when it comes to regular season. This guy's a regular 67 plus games per season type of guy.
He plays 74 games.
Yeah, the guy plays a lot. And then of course you have Jalen Brunson there. They have a bunch of young pieces with Quentin Grimes, and you have Emmanuel Quickly. You have a bunch of guys in that team that are good regular season performers. So I think the Knicks are going to relatively be a 5th seed, 6th seed around that area. So
solid off-season additions too. They picked up what's his name, Dante DiVincenzo. Who else?
They're able to retain Josh Hart.
They kept Josh Hart back. They got a solid roster. They did lose Obi Toppin. They traded him away, but to me, the Knicks got a nicer team. So I feel like they're going to push that top 5 as well.
You guys don't have any faith in the Brooklyn Nets repeating what they did last year?
Hell no.
Or do you think their record was just carried by what Kevin Durant and Kyrie did before they requested?
Yeah, definitely. I think they put them in a good enough position where even after they kind of went to a medium, they kind of fell off, they regressed. They were still in a good enough position where they ended up being able to fall into the playoffs. So
the teams underneath them were far behind them when KD and Kyrie were there playing, and then once they left, they lost. If you look at it, they did lose a lot of games, but they stayed the same, in the same spot necessarily. They stayed at that 6th spot. Nobody else moved up. So for me, I think it's gonna be a bad year for them.
Their unit where I feel like. Ironically, they're just a star away. That's the funny thing when you look at their roster. I mean, they have Cam Johnson, they have Mikal Bridges, they have Nick Claxton. They have a bunch of just pieces that are just waiting for a superstar to land there. After going through a bunch of stuff with having 3 superstars there at one point. So I mean, the roster. I don't have faith in Mikal Bridges as a number 1 option. I think he's a good player, but definitely I don't believe in him being able to uplift this team to heights. With him being a number 1 option, I just can't see it.
Okay, that's fair to say. Aside from all that, let's go ahead and move on to tank or no tank. Should these teams tank or should they not? I got a list of 6 teams. I'll go ahead and list them out, and you guys just let me know if these guys should tank or if they shouldn't tank. You guys let me know why. And at number 1, we'll go ahead and talk about the Atlanta Hawks.
No, I don't think they should tank. I think because you have Trae Young there, who. Trae Young, I have my criticisms about him, but the guy in the regular season, he's a 27-10 type of player. He's the guy who, when you're going to have a solid enough offense to build around him, you're going to have the pieces around him, and it doesn't make sense to tank when you have that, especially when you invested in a lot of guys around him. You have DeJounte Murray that they re-signed. They basically robbed Onyeka Okongwu today. I mean, giving him $15.5 million a year. They have a bunch of young pieces that they drafted. AJ Griffin. They have Kobe Buffkin. They've invested too much capital in Trae Young to really. I don't think that they're bad enough to say, oh, let's tank. I think that they're a team that can continue to improve. But tanking is a bit harsh for me. I just it doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, and a team that can make the playoffs, I don't see that team like that that's gonna possibly just say, "Hey, we're gonna go in tank mode." They did, give an extension to Murray. You have Trae Young, an elite superstar on your roster. The other pieces, a bunch of young pieces. Necessarily, you really don't have to tank. You just got to build on it. They right now for them, the only way up is to go up. You don't have to take a step back. Just the key pieces, stuff that they got to work on, key mistakes that they have to fix up on in the playoffs. I mean, they went toe to toe with Boston. It was a fun series to watch last year. So for me to say the Hawks, after what they did last year and after what they're building on to tank, I don't see that happening. For me, it's not. They can't tank. So yeah, I don't agree with that.
I wouldn't say tank. The word I would use is retool. I think the Atlanta Hawks, ever since they made the Eastern Conference Finals a couple of years ago, they really haven't been able to, build off that momentum and build a roster to surround a guy like Trae Young with the pieces that he needs. Still a very questionable move, acquiring a point guard like DeJounte Murray. I still have my question marks about that fit in that backcourt. But at the end of the day, they do have some solid pieces that they can work around. But I feel like once you have a guy like Trae Young, I think tanking is out of the window. It's out of the picture. I think as of right now, these just kind of have to retool this roster as best as they can. Maybe try to acquire another star to pair him up with a guy like Trae Young, potentially Pascal Siakam from Toronto. But I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. But I don't think these guys should tank. I should definitely think these guys should just retool their roster. But let's go ahead and move on to the next team. At number 2, we have the Chicago Bulls.
Like, I want to say they should tank, and it logically makes sense. But the issue being is that they have DeRozan, Vucevic, and Levine there. It's like when you have those three guys on your roster, it's like impossible to tank. Like I don't think Chicago Bulls should tank until they decide, hey, we're gonna trade these guys. I feel like they're stuck in limbo right now, because we saw promising signs from both Kobe White and we saw promising signs from Patrick Williams, especially during that second half of the season for Patrick Williams. And I feel like if you're going to decide to take, you have to get rid of some of these guys. I feel like keeping Levine, okay, maybe that makes sense, but keeping Agent DeRozan, which another team could have used, Vucevic, another team that a contender might be interested in, it just doesn't make much sense for a team that has, that much talent. Not saying that they're loaded with talent, but has those three guys who are, basically all-star level players, and they decide to tank. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Nah, I feel like they got to go in full rebuild mode. I feel like they tried this DeRozan Levine project with Vucevic. It don't work for them. I feel like they're going back to the same thing over and over and over again. I feel like it's time for them to obviously try to put these guys on the trade market, try to get them off the board. Levine, number one, he knows you probably get the most value off him. And then, DeRozan and Vucevic, you can get some value off him. But to me, I think they got to rebuild immediately. I think they got to throw in the towel, try to get what's left and salvage what they can get for Vucevic and DeRozan and just let Levine go. Other than that, man, they took a hit on that Lonzo Ball contract. I mean, there's nothing they can do about that. You pay your point guard $80 million. Sadly, he gets hurt, so he's not on the court either. He was part of the rebuild project in the beginning, so he's not on the court now. I guess it's time to just trash this project and see what's the next step for them.
So yeah, I definitely think the Chicago Bulls should tank. Number one, this trio of Nikola Vucevic, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, it's run its course. These guys have absolutely done whatever the best that they can do as a trio, but it's just not cutting it. It was a fun rebuild. It was a fun project to watch at first when they acquired all these guys along with Lonzo. They were the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference for a little while up until a lot of their guys got hurt. But at the end of the day, this roster just isn't good enough to compete. And you don't want to be in that gray area where you just don't know what side of the fence you're on. Are you going to compete for a playoff spot? Are you going to compete for an NBA championship? Or are you just going to tank? And their draft picks really haven't been doing too well. Patrick Williams, the guy who didn't get an extension today, a rookie extension. Ayo Dosunmu, he was a guy that they hit on a couple of years ago, but he didn't take that second-year leap that they were expecting him to take. And then coming out of this past offseason, they made absolutely no moves to move the needle to get themselves, into that contenders bubble. And so I hope that the Chicago Bulls front office and their management realize that DeMar DeRozan is on an expiring contract. So there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to come calling for him at the trade deadline. Try to get whatever you can for him. Zach LaVine is the best asset that they have. They should be able to get a lot of picks for him or a lot of assets for him. And for Nikola Vucevic, I'm not too sure how they're going to be able to move off of that contract. They just gave him an extension this past offseason, but whatever you can get for him is whatever you can get. But at this point, the Chicago Bulls have to go into a complete rebuild. They have to understand that this roster is just not good enough to compete. It was fun while it lasted, but it was a very short-term run. So aside from all of that, let's go ahead and move on to the third team on this list, the Brooklyn Nets.
No, I don't think that they should tank. I feel like I've said this for every team so far, but I really don't think that they should tank just because they have built pieces, to eventually acquire a superstar. I mean, in reality, they realistically could have had a chance at Dame. It just seemed like they were unwilling to part ways with certain guys on their roster. I believe the Portland Trailblazers end up asking for Mikal Bridges, and I don't think the Brooklyn Nets were interested in giving him up. But this roster is like curtailed for an eventual star to ask out and come over here. They have the pieces in place. They have a guy in Cam Johnson. They have a guy in Mikal Bridges. They have a amazing defensive player in Nick Claxton. They have shooters and defenders surrounding them. They have a bunch of players on this roster that are capable. So I think eventually as this team continues to play, we might hear rumors at trade deadline, or eventually, next season they might be able to sign someone in the offseason. You never know. A guy like Zach LaVine could fit this roster. Him and Mikal Bridges and the team around them could form some sort of a team. So I think this team shouldn't tank. They should continue to be competitive. They're sitting right around the same level as teams like Toronto, teams like Atlanta, maybe potentially Miami. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I don't think they should tank.
Yeah, I don't think Brooklyn should tank. I feel like, they're at that pack where they, like Abby said, just one star away from competing and one star that can take them to the top 5 team. They have the pieces. They have a bunch of great role pieces. You got Claxton, you got, Cameron Johnson, you have, what's his face, Mikal Bridges, Spencer Dinwiddie. I mean, if you count him, I don't think he's good, but people think he's good. But other than that, I mean, they got some solid pieces. I don't think they should be like throwing the towel and be like, hey, this is what we got to do. We're going to trade these players. We're going to just rebuild in the draft. I don't think so. They have a bunch of young players on their team in it, and I feel like, like I said, I'd say you get LaVine or you get another okay star, or you put like Karl Anthony Towns on the team. They can do something different. So I don't think they should rebuild. I feel like, they just got to build on what they got going on, and hopefully they find that next star player.
I'm going to have a similar answer to the Atlanta Hawks. I think the Brooklyn Nets should retool this roster. I think they have some good cornerstone pieces with Mikal Bridges and the other guy, Johnson. But at the end of the day, they really need a superstar. This team is going to be a good defensive team. I think, with Spencer Dinwiddie, I'm not on the boat with Big H. I think he's a quality point guard, not the best, not the worst, but kind of just a guy who can kind of just come in there and do the job that's asked of him. But at the end of the day, this team does need a superstar. So they can definitely retool this roster. This roster just won't be bad enough to tank. And I just feel like this team is still good enough to churn out wins as they can, but they just don't have a roster that's going to be bad enough to tank. So I think that they should definitely retool this roster. Aside from all that, let's go ahead and move on to number 4, the Washington Wizards.
They should 100% tank. I think for this team, they did an excellent job of moving on from guys, that were already there. They were able to finally move off from that. This is new management. They moved off from the Bradley Beal contract. They got rid of Porzingis. Now they're entering a new era where they drafted a guy like Bilal Coulibaly. They view Jordan Poole as their franchise cornerstone, as their star. They have Kuzma there to be a veteran and help aid in the development of these guys and, contribute to wins where he can. And they have some young pieces. So I think this team, continues as it's rebuilding, that it needs that next star, whether that be in the draft. So I think when I look at this team being so young and, being inexperienced, I think it makes sense for them to go into the draft and find that next prospect, to fit this roster. They already drafted Bilal Coulibaly. They have Jordan Poole. It's on to the next star so they can continue to build this roster.
This is the team that I already thought, they already started the rebuilding this offseason. Like, this is one of the teams that already started the tanking method. They already started the rebuild. They put all their chips away. They said, what, we're going to cash in on some picks. We got Jordan Poole. We got some young players. We picked up a young player in the draft. They already started the rebuild. So for me, they're not. I don't think they're going to be a great team this year. I don't think they're going to be a good team this year. I feel like they're going to be one of the worst Eastern Conference teams, but they're going to build up on all those picks that they have. They're going to, come into the next draft with multiple picks. They're going to have their first round pick. They're going to be high in the draft, and that's how you rebuild. And that's how you start building your team up. it's going to be exciting for them, to build off of Jordan Poole, Bilal Coulibaly, and Denny Avita and Kuzma. Those type of players are young players and everything, and just to add more young stars and everything. Hopefully, come up next draft, they find that one young star that can fit into the system and explode into becoming an NBA superstar. But for me, this team, they started to rebuild in the offseason, and this is the team that they're going to be tanking throughout the year, and they're going to be one of the worst teams. But it's not bad. It's not like they're forcefully thinking. This is a team that just don't have any great players to carry them to a playoff spot.
I definitely think this team should tank. My only question mark about this team is just the fact that even last year, without Bradley Beal playing for majority of the season, these guys were still good enough to at least be competing for that 10th seed, that last play-in spot. So what I'm thinking is they traded Bradley Beal to the Phoenix Suns. They were able to acquire Jordan Poole, a guy who's going to play all 82 games. Kyle Kuzma got paid, so he's sticking around for a little while. I just feel like this team is going to be able to go out there and compete every night. It's a team that you're probably not going to want to play. And, even though they should be tanking, I feel like they're still good enough to compete for that playing spot, which kind of puts them in a very bad predicament. You don't want to be that team that's very confused on where they lie. But at the end of the day, I definitely think this team should tank. But, when you have Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma, I just feel like they're not going to be bad enough to get like a very high pick, but they should be at least, good enough to make that 10th seed or at least compete for the last playing spot. But aside from all that, one more team on the list, the last team on the list, at number 5, we have the Charlotte Hornets.
The only thing that I'm thinking about is if these guys tank, right, what does that mean for LaMelo Ball? Because he's been in a losing situation for a while now. They've been to the play-ins, they got bounced out. And I feel like for a player of his kind, eventually like he gets fed up of something like that. But ideally, I think these guys, like when I look at their roster, I'm kind of a fan of the young players that they have. I'm not the highest on Brandon Miller, but he's a good player that's going to contribute to this team. They have LaMelo Ball, of course. They have Mark Williams. They have Miles Bridges. They have guys. They have Gordon Hayward, who a couple of these guys I do eventually see, especially the veterans. I do see them getting moved at some point. But I think that this team, when I look at it, part of me says I don't think that they should tank, but ideally I don't see them being competitive enough to keep up with some of these teams. I just don't think that they have enough talent on their roster to be able to fight for that play-in spot, and it makes sense for them to tank. It just felt like this was the year for them to land a talent like Wemby, a generational talent. It would have been perfect to be able to secure that alongside having a guy like LaMelo Ball, but they've already given LaMelo Ball the extension, so at this point, you might as well just go all in and tank. Get that next pick. You already have Brandon Miller, who you drafted extremely high. You have LaMelo Ball as your franchise cornerstone, but I think for this team to eventually be competitive again, that they have to go all in and tank. So it just makes sense to me.
For me, I think what hurt them a lot going into the summer was not getting that number 1 pick in the draft and not securing Wemby. So like if they secured Wemby, man, we wouldn't be talking about them tanking at all. You paired LaMelo with Wemby. That's a show right there. That's a highlight reel. Every minute is a highlight reel between them two. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like they got a young team. 2 years ago they made the play-ins. I mean, they were there. They wasn't far out the playoffs. They were right in the play-ins. And last year I feel like due to injuries and a couple players missing out here and there, and LaMelo not being there most of the season, they kind of dwindled. But I feel like this year I don't see them tanking, but I see them as I see them just not competing against a lot of these top teams. I feel like they're gonna show some glimpse of them being a good team, and then there's gonna be a lot of glimpse of them being an inexperienced team and a young team that's gonna be having a lot of mistakes and stuff like that. But to me, it's not in tank mode. It's similar to what the Wizards are doing. They're not gonna just be competing in games. They're gonna just be one of the bottom tier teams, and hopefully next year they can get a great solid draft pick and just build on what they're building right now.
I don't think this team should tank, and the only reason why I don't think this team should tank is the fact that they have LaMelo Ball on this roster. Now, if LaMelo Ball doesn't play a handful of games like he did last year, he missed a lot of games last year, then by all means, go ahead and compete for that number one pick in the following year's draft. But when you have a guy like LaMelo Ball on your roster, the roster is relatively similar to their playing team years, but you really just have no room for this to really just go all in on a tank, because the Charlotte Hornets, even though a lot of teams won't be watching them, these guys are going to be a fun team to watch. They still have the same team as they did from the playing years where, it's LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, Miles Bridges is back. You add Mark Williams to that. They were able to be bad last year, so they got Brandon Miller into the mix. So, these guys are going to be a very, very exciting team to watch. And I feel like when you have LaMelo Ball leading this team, it's just going to be really, really hard for these guys to just, not go out there and compete each and every night. I view them in the same light, maybe in a little higher, a little brighter light than I do the Washington Wizards. I think they have a more complete roster than the Wizards as of right now. And so that's why, even though I have them outside of my bubble for my standing predictions, I easily could have these guys sitting at 10 or 9 at best, simply because these guys are going to go out there and compete and play, fast-paced basketball, similar to what we saw 2-3 years ago when they made back-to-back playing games. And so for me, I don't think this team should tank. We just potentially need a superstar. So at the end of the day, for me, I'm going no tank. I think the Charlotte Hornets should just continue to do what they've been doing with all of their guys back this year. They should be competing for a playing spot. But aside from all that, no more teams from tank or no tank. Let's go ahead and talk about some Eastern Conference breakout players that we have for the upcoming season.
So this is a guy that's been plagued by injuries so far, especially last season. But I got my breakout player for the Eastern Conference is Cade Cunningham. I think for this guy, he's gone under a lot of people's radars. Despite the fact that he was drafted number 1, he was considered the best player in this class. Injuries have kind of taken his toll on him, and a lot of people had question marks about his overall shooting ability and the pace that he plays at. But when I was looking at the scrimmages this past summer, especially against Team USA, he was the most standout player against them. It just was moving like a veteran. Similarly plays kind of like a Chris Middleton in how he operates and how he scores, with the added ability to play make for other guys. And when I look at this team, this Pistons team, they're going to be a fun team to watch. You have Asar Thompson, who they drafted. He's a high flyer. You have Jaden Ivey. You have Jalen Duren. You have a bunch of these pieces that they have. They're not going to win a ton of games, but I do think that they're going to be a pretty fun team to watch, and I expect Cade Cunningham to be at the head of that, and especially with how he plays, and he's a very methodical player, so he's someone who I expect who will have a shooting leap and just an overall leap in terms of his ability, and just him being healthy. I think that's going to be the key factor for him. He's definitely my breakout player, and if I had an honorable mention, I mean, he kind of did break out, but I think this is going to be more of like an most improved player kind of push, but I got Mikal Bridges. I do have question marks about when I look at the last season. Felt like his shooting kind of fell off towards the end of that stretch. Can he sustain it? But he's going to be the number 1 option on this team. He's going to get as many shots as he wants. He's going to be the de facto number 1 guy. So I think he's another guy that potentially is going to break out on this roster.
For me, this is a guy that I hated on in the past. This is the guy that was, he was in my conference, he was in my division, but now he's been traded, and I think this guy's gonna, take that next step forward, and that's Jordan Poole. For me, I feel like he was held back on the Warriors. I feel like they asked him to do a lot of stuff that he wasn't supposed to do, and they threw him into a lot of stuff that wasn't part of his game. And I just feel like there was a lot of stuff outside of basketball that he was dealing with on the Warriors, with the Draymond situation and everything. So for me, I feel like, this clean slate, him being the number 1 option on this Wizards team, him being able to, take over and come in and, flourish into that star role that he can be. And I expect him to do that this year. I feel like, the Wizards, the head coach, they're going to give him that leeway to offensively take whatever shot he wants to take. But if he comes at an efficient price, I feel like he's going to explode. I feel like he can make the All-Star. I feel like, he can be a great player. So that, for me, it's Jordan Poole. Second guy, I got RJ Barrett for honorable mention. I feel like this is the year that, it's time for him to step up and be one of the best players on the Knicks. I feel like, talent-wise, he can be better than Julius Randle and Brunson, but he hasn't really we've seen flourishes of it. We've seen glimpses of it, but he hasn't really been consistent. So I expect him, come into this year. I like what I saw this year during, his playing time with Canada. Every game he was cooking, him and Shea in that backcourt, they was cooking some stuff. So expect him to be more confident, expect him to be more efficient. I expect him to take that next step that he needs to take.
My Eastern Conference breakout player this upcoming season is Benedict Mathurin. I feel like last year we kind of saw little glimpses here and there with the more minutes that he got. To begin the year, he was coming off the bench, and then he continued to, play some starter minutes. Finished the year averaging 16 points per game, shooting 43% from the field and 32% from 3. I believe if this guy cracks a starting lineup, with a guy like Tyrese Halliburton, this guy could potentially average about 20, 22 points per game. This guy is a crazy scorer. And Tyrese Halliburton is going to put him in scoring position. So I feel like with this Indiana Pacers team right now, with the roster that they have constructed right now, Buddy Hield is probably going to be out of the window real soon. He's probably going to be off this team, traded at the trade deadline. It's going to give a big opportunity and a bigger role for a guy like Benedict Mathurin to step up. When I view Benedict Mathurin, I kind of see glimpses and flashes of Anthony Edwards, but I think he has a scoring potential, to reach Anthony Edwards' level. So right as of right now, number one for me would be Benedict Mathurin, and my honorable mention would be Franz Wagner. I really had a coin toss between these two players. I think from last year, what I saw, averaging 18 points, shooting 48% from the field, 36% from the three-point line. I think he's going to be the engine for this Orlando Magic team. I think this team, if these guys can put it all together for this upcoming season, he can average somewhere around 20 points per game, shooting probably relatively similar to what he's shooting right now. And he can help this team get a little bit more wins because these guys are one of the best teams from like January onwards. But unfortunately, they just weren't able to make that last playing spot. So I think if he's able to take a leap, it's only going to be good for the Orlando Magic. So for me, it's Benedict Mathurin at number one, Franz Wagner at number two. Another honorable mention that I'll probably just throw in there is potentially Cam Johnson, averaging 16 points per game, shooting 46% from the field, 36%. He's in a bigger role now. We saw him a little bit in Phoenix, but now, towards the end of the last season, when we saw him in Brooklyn, he was getting more opportunities, more looks. I feel like he can average somewhere around at least 18 points per game on this team, shooting pretty much similar to what he's shooting right now. But for me, number one would be Benedict Mathurin, and then number two, Franz Wagner. But aside from all of that, we'll go ahead and move on from the Eastern Conference. Actually, we'll stay on the Eastern Conference. We'll do the over-under win total. And at number one, we have the Atlanta Hawks at 42.5 wins. Over or under?
42.5 wins. Over.
42.5.
Over.
If I was a betting man.
If you were a betting man.
If I was a betting man, I think I go under. So like
I'm gonna go ahead and go under as well. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the whole standings from last year because last year they got 41 wins. Now they got them a game and a half above from last year. So I think I'll go over as well. At number two, we have the Boston Celtics at 54.5 wins. Last year, this team got 57 wins.
I mean, I have them at 53, so I'll just take the over. I think one game won't hurt. I'll take the over.
I got them over.
I'm going to go ahead and go over on that one as well. Brooklyn Nets, 37.5. Last year, they were at 45.
I got the over on this. I have them at about 39-40.
Yeah, it's a tough one. A lot of them wins came from KD then. So, full season, 37 wins. I think I got under.
I'm going to go ahead and go under on this as well. Charlotte Hornets at 31.5 wins. Last year, these guys got 27 wins. Keep in mind, LaMelo Ball missed majority of the season.
I have them under.
I got them over.
Over. Chicago Bulls, 37.5. Last year, they finished with a record of 40 wins.
Under.
Under.
This one's an interesting one. The Cleveland Cavaliers, 50.5 wins. Last year, they finished with 51 wins.
50.5?
50.
I have them at 49, but I was debating whether they would be the third 50-win team in the East, and I have them at number 3 in the conference. So I'll take the over on this.
Yeah, I had them with 51, so I'm gonna take the over on this one.
I'm gonna take the under on this one. This one should be an over. Indiana Pacers, 38.5 wins. Last year, they finished with 35 wins.
I have them at over.
Yeah, I got over for this one.
Going over as well. Abdi, talk to me, man. 45.5 wins for your Miami Heat. Last year, you guys finished at exactly 44.
Funny is, I have them at 45. I'll be a bit pessimistic. I'll go with the under on this one. I'll go with the under.
I think I'm gonna go under on this one.
There's no doubt in my mind I'm going under on this one. Milwaukee Bucks, with the addition of Damian Lillard, 53.5 wins. Last year, they finished with the best record in all of basketball, 58 wins.
I'm taking the over on this one.
Taking the over.
Taking the over as well.
Easy,
Detroit
dude.
Pistons, 27.5 wins. Last year they finished with 17 wins.
I'm taking the over.
Yeah, I'll take the over. Kate Cunningham's back. Asora's on the team. I'll take the over.
I
Wait,
think
which
there's still
one's on the 10? Is it Amin or Asor?
Asar.
Asar.
Sorry,
Okay,
Thompson.
I'll take the over.
I think they're 11 games better than what they were last year. I'll take the over. The New York Knicks at 45.5 wins. They finished last year with 47.
Over.
Yeah, I got them over.
Going over as well. Orlando Magic, 37.5 wins. Last year they finished with 34.
This one I've been juggling with of where I'll take the over. I have them at about 38 to 39 wins.
I think this might be a tough one for me. I think I go under. I think they'll be close, but
I think they'll be close to 37. I'll go ahead and go over. They probably just might get at least 38, 39 wins. They won't finish with anything like more than 2+ wins. Philadelphia 76ers, 47.5 wins. Last year, this team finished with 54 wins. Keep in mind, James Harden, this status is still up in the air with this team.
I'm gonna take the over on this. They still have Embiid and Maxey. I think they're still good enough to get about 47 plus at least.
I can't wait to see Maxey play without Harden.
I have them 47 wins.
Yeah, I got them over. I think they maintain it.
I'm gonna go under on this one. Toronto Raptors, 36.5 wins. Last year, they finished with 41 wins.
Over.
Under.
I'm going under as well. The last team on the list, we have the Washington Wizards. They're at 23.5 wins. Last year, they finished with 35 wins.
I'll take the over, but barely.
They'll get 25, 26 wins, but I'll go with the over.
This is free. It's definitely an over. They're getting way more than 23.5 wins. But now, aside from all that, let's go ahead and move on to the Western Conference. Similar to what we did for the Eastern Conference, we'll start off with our Western Conference standing predictions.
So at number 1, I have the Nuggets. At number 2, I have the Suns. At number 3, I have the Lakers. At number 4, I have the Kings. At number 5, I have the Grizzlies. At number 6, I have Minnesota. Number 7, I have OKC. Number 8, I have Dallas. Number 9, I have the Clippers. And 10, I have the Warriors.
Woo! Woo!
I can already tell you right now that the Warriors are not finishing 10th in the Western Conference.
That's when we get to the hot takes, man.
Hey, number 1, Nuggets. Number 2, Suns. Number 3, Lakers. Number 4, Kings. Number 5, Memphis. Number 6, Dallas. Number 7, Warriors. Number 8, Clippers. Number 9, Minnesota. And then number 10, I got the Pelicans. Pelicans might have to be higher for me, though. I just got to see if Zion comes in the first 10 games looking healthy.
I mean, he'll look good the first 10 games, but will he be there for you after to game 25?
Man, OKC, though, I'm missing out OKC, too?
Like, the thing is, though, like,
man.
Pelicans didn't even make my top 10.
I'm taking Pelicans out. OKC's top 10. What the hell? And
they're a better team. They're a better. OKC's a better team.
My thing is,
though,
like, I'm taxing. Like, now I'm really, really taxing teams that get injured. Like, the Clippers, I have them at 9, and I have the Pelicans at 11. Like, I'm taxing teams that get injured. Because, like, now you got to prove to me that you're going to stay healthy. Because, like, Zion could get injured again. And the likelihood.
Even with their injuries, they always still maintain that.
And they're kind of, the thing is, the Clippers are kind of mid in the regular season, regardless of what goes on. So, I have them there.
Mid enough to be number 9?
Yeah, they're generally, like, the thing is, when they're like, I remember after the All-Star break, they're kind of a mid team, even when Paul George came back. Like, they were getting wins here and there, and then, of course, here and there, they're also losing at the same time. Like, I feel like they're generally not regular season performers with how much they load manage and the injuries that they get. So this team just has to prove to me that they're regular season performers in the first place.
Man, that 6 through 10 for me was tough.
I like your first 5, though.
It's pretty.
Oh,
It's Western Conference is always going to be tough. Let me go ahead and get to
67.
my predictions. At number 1, I have the Denver Nuggets. At number 2, I have the Lakers. At number 3, I have the Suns. At number 4, I have the Warriors. Number 5, I have the Kings. At number 6, I have the Clippers. 7, I have Dallas. 8, I have Minnesota. At number 9, I have Memphis. At number 10, I have the Pelicans. So that pretty much rounds out my top 10 for the Western
You don't got
Conference.
OKC either.
I have OKC as the team that's outside of the bubble, sitting at number 11. They're better than the last 4 teams on the list, but they're going to be one of those teams that are just going to be competing from 10 to 11. I can't see these guys being any better than. Actually, they could be better than Memphis. That's probably the one team I'd probably put them over. Them in New Orleans, and New Orleans is just really based on health.
I think people are just too high on the Warriors. That's why.
I feel like you're a little too high on the Warriors again.
They still have the same team. Like aside from
got
adding
worse.
Chris Paul. How did they get any worse than what they did last year?
Chris Paul's ass. That's how they got worse. Chris Paul's on the roster. Like they lost their key bench piece in Jordan Poole. They got worse.
See, the thing is, as time went on, I've kind of opened up to the idea of Chris Paul.
Oh, there you go.
I've opened up. I've opened up. Hear me out. Hear me out.
He's gonna run the bench. He's gonna run the bench with Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody.
He's gonna. This is Chris Paul is the player that the Warriors have been missing. I understand Jordan Poole is still the better player than Chris Paul. The trade to me till this day is still stupid. I think when you think of the Golden State Warriors, obviously they're going to be competing whenever you have a guy like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green on your roster. There's really no room for you to think about the future. When they started thinking too far ahead into the future, they started going into this double timeline gimmick, and that didn't necessarily end well for them. Jordan Poole's gone, James Wiseman is gone, and now it's big years coming up for Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody. And so there's a lot of pressure on those two guys to perform, or else those guys are probably going to get shipped off in this next offseason. But the reason why I've opened up to the idea of Chris Paul, being successful on this team is, number one, he's not going to be asked to do a lot on this team, aside from running the second unit and really just controlling the offense. And that's kind of what they've been missing. The Warriors were a very turnover-heavy team last year. Half of it was because of Jordan Poole's erratic play. But at the same time, though, the downside of it is on one end you lose a guy that's going to play 82 games for you. But on the other end, though, with a guy like Chris Paul, the turnovers are going to go down. There's no way the turnovers are going to remain the same or get worse when Chris Paul is running the show. And so when you ask Chris Paul to just come in and relieve Steph Curry from his point guard duties while he's resting up for 6-7 minutes in that second quarter, in that third quarter, you can sit back and be comfortable knowing that Chris Paul is going to be able to run the show regardless of who's out there on the court. Now, do I think this team is like an NBA Finals contending team with Chris Paul on this roster? Absolutely not. But I think they're going to be able to get the best out of Chris Paul just based on the fact that he's not going to be asked to do much for this team, and he's going to be able to command the second unit like how Steve Kerr wants him to. But I've opened up to the idea. Now, don't kill me necessarily if it doesn't end up panning out how I expected it to pan out, but from what I've seen in preseason, it's looking pretty well. And I think Jonathan Kuminga is going to be one of the people that benefit the most out of Chris Paul being on the second unit with him.
I just don't see it with the entire Warriors roster. I mean, Klay's play can be up and down. His play could be, one night Klay Thompson is 27, the next night, he's off. Like his play can be up and down. Draymond does not offer the same level of scoring as he did back in 2016. He's just not a scoring threat whatsoever. Neither's Kevon Looney. The same, Andrew Wiggins is probably their second best scorer, on a consistent basis. And even then, I don't know how reliable that is. This team to me is just, it seems like it's aged, past its prime. When I look at it, Klay Thompson is not the Klay Thompson of old. Draymond Green, of course, not the same. Defensively, he's always going to be good, but offensively, I just don't see it. And then when you look at this bench unit, yeah, Chris Paul can provide some things, but even then, Chris Paul, the version that we saw in the playoffs for against the Clippers, that's the version of Chris Paul that we should expect. I don't see his one thing, health, being able to be reasonable for him. I don't know if he's going to be able to remain healthy, and two, I don't know if he's ever going to, be able to provide a positive impact versus what he brings on his downsides, which is, he's not going to be a scoring threat anymore, and at the same time, he's going to get picked on defense. So, I just question, Chris Paul's entire fit into the Warriors, team, and I just question the whole roster in of itself. I just don't believe that they're as talented as they used to be.
I mean, this roster is still relatively the same roster that they had when they won the championship. They're missing a couple of guys like, one Jordan Poole and then a couple other pieces here and there. But when you look at this roster from top to bottom, you got to remember they have Steph Curry on this roster, so there's just absolutely no way these guys can finish.
The
in
West
the
is also
half.
much better than when they won it in 2022.
How much better has the West gone from last year? Because these guys, even though we look at the Warriors last year and all of their struggles, they're one of the worst road teams in all of basketball, one of the best home teams. Being one of the best home teams is going to, in all of basketball, is going to continue for this upcoming season. That's never going to change. They have one of the best home courts in all of basketball. What they do away is going to be a lot better than what they did last year, just based on the fact that they can't be that worse again on the road. And so they finished last year as the 6th seed with 44 wins. And you're telling me,
look how many wins everybody else had right next to them, though. They're all relatively next to each other.
It was all relatively close. But you're telling me with Steph Curry on this roster, these guys are going to get, without Jordan Poole, these guys are going to get so much worse than what they were last year?
It's not Jordan Poole, it's the rest of the roster. I kind of question that and the combination of the West getting better. I mean,
and they still haven't, adjusted, what was making them lose last year. They still haven't fixed that. It's still the same issue that's still there.
Like when you look at the West, they're just the West. You have the Lakers there, you have the Kings there. Of course, you have the Nuggets there. You have the Suns there. Minnesota's still looming around. You have OKC that just got better. Dallas, they added some pieces to their roster. Clippers, they're a big question mark. Can they stay healthy? And Pelicans. I know we have discussion every year about these teams, but we have to discuss in hypotheticals when we look at the Western Conference. And, when I look at these rosters that these teams have, I don't see it where I look at the Warriors roster and I'm like, okay, yeah, they're substantially better than teams that are 6 through 10. I just don't see it at all. I feel like they kind of fall within that range of those teams. And usually if I have a team just sitting at 10, it means 10 through 6 are about 2 wins apart from each other.
Okay, when you explain it that way, that's fair to say. Because the way I'm looking at it in the West, last year they finished at 6, and the teams above them were the Clippers, the Suns, the Kings, the Grizzlies, and the Nuggets. The Nuggets, the Phoenix Suns, now we add the Lakers into the mix when they're healthy. You could potentially throw in the Kings in there as well. Those are 4 guaranteed teams that are probably going to be better than the Warriors. Every other team after that, I really don't see any move that they made in this past offseason that got them, that I can confidently say, okay, yeah, these guys made a crazy move, a good move. They're better than the Warriors now. They're all relatively close. So I just feel like these guys, if you take away the Memphis Grizzlies from what they did last year, that's a team that's going to fall off. You add the Lakers into the mix. There's already 4 or 5 guaranteed teams that are going to be better than the Warriors. Every other team after that, I'm more confident in what they have in comparison to what not hypothetically speaking, but at number 7 on my list is the Dallas Mavericks, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think the Warriors have a pretty well constructed roster to be better than a lot of these teams. But those other 4 teams that I mentioned above, I can't see those guys. I can't see the Warriors being better than those guys because they don't have the roster and they don't have the offensive firepower to compete with any of those guys. But to have them at 9, it makes sense based on your explanation, saying that everything from 10 through 6 is relatively close, 2 games out. But aside from the Golden State Warriors, though, the Memphis Grizzlies, that's the one team I think might just fall off the face of the earth with Ja Morant being suspended 25 games. I got him at 9. I forgot where you guys had him at.
I had him at 5. I think Big H had him around 5 or 6, something like that.
That's crazy.
I don't think it's crazy just because this team has shown time and time again that they can adjust when Ja Morant has gone out of the lineup. Yes, they've lost Tyus Jones and they've inserted Marcus Smart now into their lineup, but this team, whenever they've been able to play without Ja Morant, I think they have like 18-11 record now in the past 2 seasons without Ja Morant. Like every single time Ja Morant has gone out the lineup, this team has been able to adjust. Their head coach Taylor Jenkins is able to adjust. This team, they have pieces in place to be able to play. Desmond Bane, his averages with Ja Morant go out, they skyrocket. Jaren Jackson, same thing. Xavier, the issue where I think it's going to lie for them is the loss of Steven Adams for the rest of the season. That's where it's going to hurt. And I eventually can see them making a move for a guy like Isaiah Hartenstein, one of these, these bigs they can plug in and play. because losing Steven Adams is the big hurt. I think Ja Morant that they can survive 25 games, and that's the thing that's important for them. Can they survive those first 25 games without Ja Morant? 100%, I believe they can. They've proven it time and time again that they're able to do that. They're able to rely on their role players and their guys like Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson, and I expect no less coming up this season.
I just got back. What was the question?
The Grizzlies, why we have them at 5?
Why do you
I
have
like
the
that.
Grizzlies at 5, Big H?
I like they have a very well built roster, especially with I forgot the center that's coming back. I know Steven Adams is done for the year, but the other center,
Xavier Tillman.
Was Xavier Tillman?
Not the one that got hurt. Brandon Clark.
Oh yeah. I forgot about him.
Back. The addition of Marcus Smart, the addition of Rose, and obviously having Ja and Jaren Jackson and Desmond Bane. I feel like the roster's still good defensively. I feel like they're going to take another step with Marcus Smart.
I think they can. The thing is, I think they can survive without Ja those first 20 games.
I feel like
25 games. You guys think Ja Morant without Ja Morant, the Grizzlies can keep their head above water?
They've proven it time and time again.
No, let me say this. Yeah, you've been said this in the past before, and you always brought up every time we brought up Memphis and why their record was so high. You always say, "Hey, Ja missed 20-something games, and they went 13-7, or they went 15-3 without Ja." You brought that up the last couple of seasons. They have winning records without Ja playing at all. So for them to, that first 25 games, I feel like they can weather the storm.
Survive.
They can weather the storm. Obviously, Desmond Bane's gonna have to step up. Jaren Jackson,
and that's a guy that I expect to step up. Like I 100% believe Desmond Bane's average is just gonna go up. He's gonna average like 25.
Yeah, he's gonna get number one looks. They're gonna rely on him a lot. He's gonna have the ball a lot. And I don't know what Rose is gonna bring to the table, but leadership and age. I don't know what he has left in the gas tank, but he's gonna bring something.
And they have Marcus Smart as well now.
Marcus Smart's going to be a lot for them. So I feel like, they can
weather. Marcus Smart is not no crazy upgrade, guys.
He's a contributor, though. That's the thing,
I think first 25 games, my expectation, them go 15-10. Whether the Storm, 15-10 is right there is positive. At least you have a winning record. I don't expect them to go 20-5. I don't expect them to go 17-8 or 19-5 or 6. I expect them to weather the storm, 15-10, and then when Ja comes back, that's your superstar. That's when you take off.
This is the Western Conference we're talking about, guys. It's not the Eastern Conference where you can miss your star for 25 games and you can be just fine.
We've seen him compete without Ja, though. That's not an issue. We've seen him compete against the Lakers without Ja in the playoffs, and they went next.
This is 20. This is you guys are getting mistaken and getting fooled with the record of without Ja off the court. This is 25 consecutive games without Ja Morant. They've never gone 25 consecutive games without Ja Morant. It's maybe been 1 to 2 games. You probably load manage him on a Tuesday night in Toronto, and then you probably have him back the next night on a Thursday night when they play the Milwaukee Bucks. That's how they load. That's how they survive and keep their head above waters without Ja. Now it's completely different. It's 25 straight games from game 1 to game 25
it's all about just
without Ja Morant.
Remaining at least 500. That's the goal for them. They're not thinking, okay, we got to be top 3, top 4 in the conference. The Western Conference is going to stay relatively close. No one's going to, besides maybe the Nuggets and the Suns, no one's really going to just go out of reach from everybody else. And maybe nobody's going to stay out going to run away from everybody else. I think everybody's going to stay, you're going to have teams that are 18-7 in that first 25 games. You're going to have the Nuggets who are probably going to be 20-5 or something like that. You're going to have the Lakers you have the Lakers that are going to be like 18-7 or 17.
I don't expect to see the Kings. I don't expect to see the Kings go 23-2 the first 25 games. I don't expect Dallas to be 20-5 the first 25 games. I don't expect the Warriors to be 20-5. So Memphis is going to be right there in the middle of the pack with them.
15-10, and that's what they need. 15-10, yeah. They can do that.
I'm gonna call it right now. These guys are going to be below 500 by the time Ja Morant gets back. There's absolutely no way these guys keep their head above waters for 25.
I mean, if they're like 14-11, I mean, they can't really complain. If they're like 14, but if they go what 10 and 15
or 10 and 15,
they're going to finish. They're going to start off the season below 500 those first 25 games up until Ja Morant gets back. Because I understand they acquired Marcus Smart to kind of keep the ship afloat until they get back Ja Morant. They had a Derrick Rose, but they're still missing they're still missing a huge piece of their offense. And like I said, it's different when you lose a guy for 1 to 2 games on load management night or an injury night in comparison to 25 straight games. This is something that they've never seen before. They've never gone 5-10 games alone without Ja Morant. So for me, I think they're going to start off the season extremely slow. Ja Morant's going to have a lot of carrying that he has to do when he gets back. So that's why I have him at number 9 for sure. But I'm booking it right now. That's one of my things I'm going to put on record that these guys will start below 500.
We can go through the first 25 games. I think they can get those 15 W's. Looking at
You
those
never.
first
The
20.
thing is, with the NBA, man, you
Yeah,
just never know. It's any given night. It's just like football, man. The games where they're supposed to win, they might just not have it that night, and you just really never know. But 25 straight games without John Morant, these guys will not come out above 500 when he's ready to go to come back.
nah, you tripping. We're going to get back to that.
Let's go ahead. We'll go ahead and get back to that. But teams that are outside the bubble, I think we have relatively close teams. We have the Trailblazers that are going to be outside of the bubble. We have the Houston Rockets outside of the bubble, San Antonio and Utah. All four of those teams will not be competing for any playing spot. I think they understand that they're looking towards the future. But Dallas Mavericks and the Sacramento Kings. We'll start with the Kings. You guys think they regress from what they did last year?
I mean, maybe the offense is going to take like a slight regression, which is normal. They're not going to be at the historic levels that they were, but I think this team is going to still relatively play at that same fast pace. They're going to be shooting a lot. They're going to be going up and down, and I don't expect them to take a massive dive. I just think the Lakers are going to be probably going to be a more stable team than they'll be. But the Kings, I have them at like my fourth seed, and I think that's relatively fair to have them at. I think this team's offense is just too consistent, too good, night in and night out with a guy like De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, who's a good regular season performer, and the Mike Brown offense that they've kind of instilled with a bunch of shooters around. I think this team's going to be good enough to continue to be that fourth seed. They're a young roster, so I expect them to continue to improve.
Yeah, offensively, I don't expect them to keep up the same paces and efficiency that they had last year. They set some records last year offensively. I don't expect them to keep that up, but I feel like this is still a young team. This is still a team that we seen last year compete against the Warriors team that everybody holds high regards for. I think this Kings team is not going to have any regression. I feel like the only way up for them is to go up, and they have that type of roster. I feel like Fox can take that next step forward. Keegan Murray can take that next step forward. They have some bonus that's already solidified. Yeah, some nice bench players, coming off the bench, and Malik Monk and Davion Mitchell. So I feel like they got the key pieces to that team. They have some, they have their star players and a great head coach. So I expect them to be better. I expect them to compete, and I don't see regression from this team.
Yeah, I don't see a regression either. I think for me, I made a mistake actually. I think I had them ahead of Golden State. I'd probably swap them. They'll probably be my fourth seed. Move the Warriors down 5. These guys are going to be competing each and every night, and especially with the way they play the offense with Mike Brown leading the way, these guys will be able to compete. So I have no question. These guys will continue to do what they did last year. I think they're going to get some huge step forwards from guys like Keegan Murray, and those guys will be able to play a lot better than what they did last year. But moving on from the Sacramento Kings, let's talk about the Dallas Mavericks. Obviously, we know they acquired Kyrie Irving at the trade deadline last year, but Mark Cuban decided to pull the plug early and tank for a top draft pick, so they avoid giving it to the New York Knicks. What should we expect from the Dallas Mavericks in the year 2 of Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic's experiment?
The thing is, though, with me, I'm keeping my expectations low, but I wouldn't be surprised in the least bit if this team was like a top 4 seed, top 5 seed. Offense was not the problem with this team. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, offensively, they were essentially flawless. They're putting up numbers nightly. The problem is on the defensive end. Some of that was contributed because of Luka Doncic, but majority they didn't have rebounding, they didn't have rim presence. Dwight Powell's a good contributor. He's a solid backup, but he's not a starting level center in my opinion. He's not a rim protector. He's not a big rebounder kind of guy. So they went out and got defense personnel. They got Grant Williams. They went out and they drafted Derek Lively. One of my favorite prospects in the draft. The elite rim protector, who's the guy that they can continue to groom and get prepared for that center role. They drafted Omax. Omax Prosper, and I think that they've added defensive personnel, but
Richard Holmes.
Yeah, Rashawn Holmes as well. I think they acquired him as well. So they've added pieces. I kind of have him at the 8th seed just because I'm more so on like a prove it type of basis. But this team's ceiling is very, very high. Having Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving surrounding them with defense personnel, and a guy who, I don't have him as my breakout player, but I would not be surprised if he broke out as Josh Green. Like in any lineup that he was alongside Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, this guy was absolutely amazing. He attacking closeouts, spot ups from 3. Couple seasons ago, he wasn't able to do that stuff, and he's rapidly improving. And so that's another guy that I think is going to take a step forward at this team. So I have him at the 8th seed, but I would not be surprised if they ended up being a top 4 seed.
I got them, top 6, and I kind of like, like I just said, they added some length up front. They got Derek Lively, they, Rashard Holmes, they, signed Derek Jones Jr. And I feel like, Kyrie and Luka this year, I feel like they're gonna mesh even better. I feel like last year during the trade deadline, Luka was pretty sure he was hurt when Kyrie came back, and then Kyrie got hurt, and Luka played some games, and then Kyrie came back, and they finally started going, but I feel like it wasn't enough games for them to mesh and get used to each other. I feel like this year they got a different type of roster. I like them getting Seth Curry. They got another, ball handler, shooter coming off the bench for them, and then them getting Grant Williams. It just adds more defensive beef to the team. And I think it's a good little roster they got there. So I feel like Kyrie and Luka, they're gonna cook up, immediately to start the year. You got Kyrie locked in. He's there. So I feel like, he's gonna come in. He's gonna start cooking. So for me, it's Luka, Kyrie, 2-star players, and then a bunch of great role players that got to step up and show up. And defensively, they got to play better, especially Luka. I'm tired of seeing Luka every time not get a call on the offensive end and just start complaining to the ref and not run back, and then it's just half-assed on defense. And that happens too much times, and you see it 3 or 4 times a game, and it's like, it's going to cost your team. And that happened a lot towards the end of the season last year. So, I expect Luka to have a different mindset. I don't like that complaining on the, every time you don't get a call, just, get back, play some defense, help your team, play defense. So I expect this year defensively for them to be better, but they can make a top 4 push.
Okay, I mean that's fair to say, but lower your expectations for Luka when it comes to complaining to the referees. I think that's gonna.
I'm not saying lower my expectation. I'm just saying what I don't like. I don't like seeing that. I don't like people
expect that though. I think you're going into the season expecting that he's gonna just miraculously not complain. That's something that he's gonna continue to do, and that's a huge problem in this game. And I 100% agree with you on that. But
it's nasty.
I can't see it. I just can't see it stopping.
There's 2 games last year. I think it was like back-to-back against the Hornets where it was extremely close, and they lost both those games. And coming down late games, there was like 3 or 4 calls where he just stopped and he did not get back on defense. He was just yelling at the ref. And I'm just like, yo, it's 126, 125. Get back on defense. It's 4-on-5. And it cost him 2 games in a row. So for me, I don't like that. It's disgusting. And if he doesn't change it, it's going to cost him a lot more games.
Hopefully that isn't the case. But for me, I'm actually really excited to watch this duo of Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic going into the season. Last year, I had my question marks about this fit, as the Dallas Mavericks made a move at the trade deadline to get a guy like Kyrie. But I think this is finally time for Kyrie to put the league once again on notice. We saw some glimpses. We saw some flashes, last year. I think he had a very solid year last year. And if it wasn't for his antics off of the court, he would have made all NBA. I feel like he still has that. He's still that type of player. He's still an all NBA level type of player. And you're only pairing him alongside another all NBA type of player. So these guys are going to be able to compete each and every night. These guys are going to be one of the best scoring punches in the league. And so with the full offseason, with the full training camp to get used to each other, these guys can go ahead and easily get more than what their win total was last year and whatever Vegas has them at right now at the over-under. So I'm really excited to see how this duo is going to pan out, but expect a big year from Kyrie Irving for sure. I think Kyrie Irving, once again, with all the drama off the court, we're going to be reminded of who he is as a basketball player on the court. So aside from all that, let's go ahead and get to these over-under win totals. At number 1, we have the Dallas Mavericks at 43.5.
Ooh, 43.5. I'm going to go with over.
Last year, these guys had less than that for sure, about like 38.
38, 39 last year.
I have them at 43 wins, but I'm not mad if you go 40. I'll go 44, so I'll go with the over.
I'm saying they're going to be a top 6 seed in the West. Yeah, I got to go with the over.
I think I'm going to go under here. Denver Nuggets 52.5 wins. They finished last year with 53 wins.
Over.
Next, we have the Golden State Warriors at 47.5 wins. Last year, they finished with 44 wins.
Under.
Houston Rockets 31.5 wins.
Hold on. I'm not gonna let that slide. You said you had the Warriors as a top 5 seed, right?
Yeah.
You can't pick under have them as a top 5 seed.
I mean, the 5th seed last year only had 44 wins. I think it's going to be relatively close in the Western Conference, and Vegas got him at 47.5. So
that's crazy.
If they win 48 games, then that means these guys are going to be competing for a top 3 seed in the West. I can't see that. The 3rd seed last year had 48 wins, and that was Sacramento, and they played the best brand of basketball.
You're right.
That still wasn't
That's
enough
crazy.
to get them a top 2
Yeah,
seed.
that's crazy. I ain't know that. My
So
bad.
47 and a half is a lot. And I think even with the new load management rules, these guys are still going to be able to find ways to not play the majority of their guys, kind of just have to coast through the regular season like they've been doing this last couple of years. So 47 and a half wins. I'm going under on that. They could probably hover around 44 to 46. They just won't get 48. Next, we have the Houston Rockets, 31 and a half wins. Last year, they finished with 22, but they acquired Fred VanVleet. They were pretty active in the market. Dylan Brooks, Amen Thompson, Jalen Greenleaf. What do we have him at?
Over.
I got him over. I'm excited to see Jabari Smith play this year.
It's another guy I completely forgot to mention as well. I'm going to go ahead and go over on this one. Next, we have the Los Angeles Clippers, 45 and a half wins. Last year, they finished with 44 wins as the 5th seed.
Under.
45.
45 and a half.
Clippers, Kawhi, PG. I'd have got him over.
I'm going to go ahead and go under. They find a way to load and manage those two guys throughout the season. This one is interesting. Los Angeles Lakers, 46 and a half wins. Last year, they finished with 43 wins as the 7th seed.
I'm going to go with the over on this one.
You know what I'm picking, baby. I got the over.
If I was a betting man, I would definitely take the over on this 46 and a half wins. This is an absolute steal. This is just really just based on the health, and Vegas is not taking into account how much better their roster got. So I'm going over on that. Memphis Grizzlies, over under 45 and a half wins. Last year, they had 51 wins. John Morant suspension, 25 games.
I'll go with the over still. Still confident they can get 46 wins.
I'll go with the over.
Y'all are crazy. I'm going under on this one. Next, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves at 45 and a half wins. Last year, they finished with 42 wins. Karl-Anthony Towns did miss majority of last season.
Crazy because I have them at 45 wins. I'll go with the under on this one.
I'm gonna go under.
I think the West is too competitive, so I'm going to go ahead and go under, but they'll be somewhere between 42 to 44. Next, we have the New Orleans Pelicans at 44 and a half wins. Last year, they finished with 42 wins. Zion did miss majority of last season as well. They did deal with their injuries.
Under. Zion, I don't trust his health.
I'm going under.
I'm going over. I think these guys somehow, some way try to figure it out. If they're able to stay healthy, that's just their main key. Oklahoma City Thunder, 45 and a half wins. Last year, they finished with 40 wins. It's going to be an interesting answer from you, Abdi.
I have them at 44 wins. I have them just at the under. I think they're going to go plus 4 wins, but the West is just too competitive. Like that 6 through 10 spot is just going to be like 44, 45, 43, 44. Like everybody's going to be around the same range. So I have them at 44 wins. I'm just at the under.
I'm going to have him under as well. I feel like, the addition of Chet coming back this year, I feel like they're going to be even better. But even in this West, better to me is 2 to 3 games. I still don't think they're going to hit that 45 mark.
I'm going under on this one. The Phoenix Suns, the new look Phoenix Suns, over under 52 and a half wins after acquiring Bradley Beal this offseason. Last year, they finished with 45 wins.
I'll go with the under, but I have them at like 50 wins.
I got them over. I feel like season-wise last year, they were meshing when KD came. They got on a little win streak with him. I feel like this year, season-wise, it's going to be completely the same. With Bradley Beal, I don't see them, miss a step.
52 wins is a lot in the Western Conference, man. If the Denver Nuggets are at 52, they'll probably go over that, but I can't see Phoenix being more than a 50-51 win team, so I'm going to go under. Portland Trailblazers, over under 27 and a half wins. Last year, they finished with 33 wins, but Damian Lillard was on this roster.
I'll go with the under on this one.
Under,
but I do think they'll be a fun team to watch. Last year, not last year, but next we have the Sacramento Kings at 44 and a half wins. Last year, they finished with 48 wins.
I'll go with the over.
Over.
San Antonio Spurs, 28 and a half wins. Last year, they finished with 22 wins, which earned them Victor Wembanyama.
I'll take the over on this one.
Over. No, I'm a Spurs fan this year. I got stock in them.
It's like having Tesla stock, bro. How does that work?
I'm
So
just
too
saying,
high.
it's not too high. I invested all my money in there though, so I got a
It's
good
like
little
having
bit.
it's actually like having Bitcoin stock, to be honest, bro. How do you
But
invest in Victor
I
Wembanyama?
was an investor. I was an investor with Tim Duncan back in the days. I just had to get back in, and make a couple phone calls.
That's ridiculous. I have these guys going over though 28.5 wins. Last but not least, we have the Utah Jazz at 35.5 wins. Last year they were able to win 37 wins, 37 games. Lauri Markkanen was, I think, the most improved player last year.
I have him at the under.
I think they go under.
They go under by a
slowed down.
lot.
Yeah, they
These
slowed
guys,
down towards the end of the season. They slowed down a lot.
I remember we were talking about we were talking about the Utah Jazz being a good, top playoff team. Then they ended up falling off the face of the earth. I got these guys going under for sure. Next, we'll go ahead and move on to our Western Conference breakout players. Of course, obviously we have our top guys and an honorable mention.
Well, my top guy that I think is gonna have a breakout year is Devin Vassell. I think, kind of just his.
I fucks with his game.
That guy's tough, man. I just like his play style. He's a nice little, mid-range creator. The guy went under the radar, of course, because he's in the Western Conference. He's on a tanking team, but he averaged about 18. He averaged 18, 19 points per game, shooting 38, 39% from three. He was super efficient in how he just played, and I think now, playing alongside a guy like Wemby, playing off of him, I think that's going to improve his game a lot. His assist totals are definitely going to go up, and now he's going to, a lot of the attention is going to shift over to Wemby, and then Devin Vassell is going to be able to create his shot on his own. So I think the guy just in his ability to score, it's very, very underrated. And he's kind of a fun player to watch. If you've ever watched Spurs games, especially in the play-ins, Devin Vassell's been kind of the guy in their go-to. They've been their go-to guy in these play-in games. So now I'm a fan of him. My other breakout player is Jonathan Kuminga. I think this is going to be the year where the Warriors actually decide to utilize him. Coming out the draft, this guy, he had some perks in terms of his ability to be an isolation scorer. He was stupidly athletic, but it seems like the Warriors kind of, fell out of favor with him. They didn't really utilize him in the playoffs this past year. And now I think now he's going to take that chance by storm. He looks, amazing in the preseason. He's going to be a guy who's going to work well with Chris Paul. He's going to be a guy that's going to get to his spots. He cuts a lot. I think his shot has been improving. His ability to score one-on-one has been going up and up, and I think he's going to be another breakout player for me.
For me, I got two guys right here, Jabari Smith and Keegan Murray. I feel like these two guys, especially Jabari Smith, after seeing him play in the Summer League, and him just being more confident in his shot and attacking the rim and just being much more confident. I feel like offensively he could take that next leap. Last year, everything we said about the Rockets, we said their system was kind of messed up. It was kind of just a free flow type basketball, and it was just, just who can get their own type of basket. And it was no type of offensive movement or motion or anything. So like this year under, Udoka, they're going to have a much better system. The ball's going to get swung. The ball's going to get passed. You got Jalen Green, you got FVV, you got Amen Thompson as your guards. And then, Jabari Smith is your key big. And I feel like he's going to be the one to contribute on that offensive side of the ball as that that 4-5 guy for the team necessarily. And I just like the fit on the roster. I feel like, Udoka coming from coaching Tatum and Jaylen Brown, those type of 6'9", 6'10" versatile power forward, small forward type builds, he's gonna fix up his offensive game. He's gonna get him sharp. So for me, Jabari Smith number one, and the Keegan Murray, I feel like he has to take that next step forward. We've seen him as a shooter. We've seen him, last year, moments of him, glimpses of him play good in the Warrior series in the playoffs, and he just got to be more confident. He just got to start attacking the basket more and just, finding his shot more, and be that. I feel like, offensively, you got Fox as your one, and then it kind of floats around for the rest of the team. Maybe Sabonis one night, maybe Malik Monk one night, and maybe it's, it's Keegan Murray sometimes. Maybe, it's for him to step up, maybe get that number 2 spot and secure that scoring, be that second scoring option on the team. So we'll see what happens, but I got some 2 young guys to cook up.
Yeah, Keegan Murray was definitely a guy I had on my list. I do think he has the ability to step up, but he's going to be asked to do a lot more for this Kings team. But for me, my Western Conference breakout player, Big H, you might like this one, but I got Austin Reeves as my Western Conference breakout player. Even though last year we saw some flashes, we saw him kind of take that third scoring option role alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I think now LeBron James and AD and Darwin Ham understand that this is a guy that they can consistently rely on as a scorer. even though his game isn't appealing, and obviously him foul baiting and things of that nature, the guy can go out and get you a bucket when you need it. And if you have LeBron James's trust, there's absolutely nothing you can do. There's nothing that can go wrong when you have LeBron's trust. And so I think Austin Reeves can go ahead and take a leap from what he did last year, even though I think he had a pretty solid year last year from what we saw from him the second half of the season. From 13 points per game, shooting 52% from the field and 39% from three. I think he can still have the same shooting splits, but he can be a way better scorer. He could average a lot more points than what he's averaging right now. So if he can make that jump from 13 points per game all the way up to at least 17 to 19 points per game for sure when you play alongside LeBron James and AD, because the buckets are going to come freely. The minutes will be there. He'll be on the court for a lot of the time. And so I think Austin Reeves he has the ability and he has the opportunity to go ahead and take that breakout leap, as the Lakers hope and expect him to. Another guy that I have on my list after Keegan Murray is Shaedon Sharpe, because I feel like, even though he last year was a down year for the Portland Trailblazers, he only averaged 10 points, shooting 47% from the field and 36% from three. Now he has a bigger opportunity to do what he wants, and he's on a team that's going to play extremely freely, because it's a very, very young team. It's a very, very exciting team. He can really go out there and, put up a little more than what he's putting up from what he put up last year, 10 points per game. So I feel like he's going to be able to showcase all of his talents just based on the fact that these guys aren't necessarily competing for anything. So it's just going to be free flowing basketball. You get a bucket, I get a bucket, going from him, Anthony Simons to Scoot Henderson. Those three guys are going to be a full joy.
You muted.
Yeah, number one for me would be Austin Reeves, and number two would be Shaedon Sharpe, and then Keegan Murray as well. But that pretty much wraps up our Western Conference breakout players of the season, of the year. Let's go ahead and move on to these NBA award predictions. And as always, we'll start off with MVP.
So my MVP for the 2024 season, I got Giannis, and then my honorable mention would be Jason Tatum. I think it just makes the most sense to me to have those two.
My MVP this year going to be Jason Tatum. Honorable mention going to be Anthony Davis.
For me, my MVP is going to be JT, and for my honorable mention, I'm going Nikola Jokic. I feel like he needs one more in the trophy room, because from what happened last year, he definitely got robbed. I'm not going to move off of the MVP conversation before I hear an explanation on why you have AD there, Big H.
Yeah, it's kind of
that's nuts. That's legit crazy.
The last 3 years,
I'm an AD guy too, so if
that's
kind of it's crazy.
I'm just saying. Just listen. Last 3 years, we've been saying it's time for LeBron to hand off the baton to AD. Every single year we've been saying that, and it hasn't happened. I just feel like this is the year that we finally let AD, or LeBron finally lets AD takes that reign. I feel like this year he can be healthy. I feel like he's in contention for Defensive Player of the Year, and I feel like offensively he can. If he can be consistent, the guy can average you 28 and 13 on the offensive side of the ball. And he can be one of the best defensive players in the league at the same time. So why not put him in MVP contention? If we're winning games and if we can get, a top 2 to 3 seed in the West, why not throw him in the contention? And a lot of it's based off AD showing up for us this year, because I do not expect the 40-year LeBron to be carrying us this full season.
What does AD have to average for him to be in contention for MVP?
Like I said, 28 and 12 and got to be Defensive Player of the Year. He got to be in contention for that Defensive Player of the Year.
I just don't think I'll see a situation where, like, we'll see more of the first half of LeBron, like that version we saw of him last year. That first half, averaging 26. That's the version of LeBron I expect to see. So, and I still think that he'll be the number one guy on the roster.
Now we got to get AD going. You got to get AD going immediately. I don't want him to start off slow. It's the same stuff that happens every single year. He starts off slow, he warms up, and then when postseason comes, playoff comes, it's the inconsistency. He's never been consistent for us in the playoffs, except that finals year. But coming back to last year, just looking at it, it's just, one game he's great, then the next game he gives you 13 points, and then one game he's great again, and then offensively he gives you 15 points. He's shooting 4 for like 17, and he's great defensively, but we need more help on the offensive side of the ball. So for me, I feel like if he can be consistent on the basis for a full year, I feel like he'd be in the MVP contention.
It's fair enough, man. I'm actually hoping he can stay healthy for once. I'm an AD guy, so it's always good to see him out there putting up numbers. Next, we have Defensive Player of the Year. I hope we can all agree on this one.
So for Defensive Player of the Year, I have AD winning it, and my honorable mention would be Evan Mobley.
Yes, sir. I got AD winning it, and then honorable mention. I feel like Bam deserves it. Like I feel like he got shanked a couple times his last couple years. I feel like people don't look at Miami and how much value that Bam brings to that team, and they always just look at, hey, look what Jimmy's doing, and Jimmy shows up every single playoffs, but Bam's he is one of the most consistent players for Miami. I feel like defensively he's one of the best players in the league, and that gets overshadowed a lot. I got him as an honorable mention.
For me, I'm doubling down from what I predicted last year. I think Rudy Gobert is going to be Defensive Player of the Year. No, I'm just playing. I thought we're gonna be able to agree on this one. I have Bam being my Defensive Player of the Year. My honorable mention is Anthony Davis.
I kind of gave up on picking Bam. I'm not gonna lie.
You think the voters are just not going to sway in his favor?
Fucking overlooked him like twice.
Yeah, the voters.
I kind of gave up on that dream.
They messing with him.
I kind of gave up on that dream. Plus, like the thing is, though, it's just like the reason why that season of 2022 was perfect was because we were the first seed, and so that was a perfect opportunity for the voters to be able to give Bam, the Defensive Player of the Year. But then they came in with the bullshit. He didn't have enough games under his belt, and then they turned around and next year they handed it off to Jaren Jackson Jr., who played a similarly amount of minutes as Bam when he was injured. But like it's the inconsistency of the vote, so I kind of gave up on Bam. So I just don't think our defense our overall team standings going to be good enough where voters are going to be like, okay, look at Miami, they're a 6th seed, whatever, 7th seed, but Bam's been playing great defense. I think they'll just kind of overlook it. It's the same thing with Brooklyn, as I don't think, Nick Claxton dropped off defensively at all. He was one of the best defensive players in the league last season, but just because KD and Kyrie left and then, they dropped all the way down to the 7th seed, people were like, oh, look at their defense, it fell off, but, I just don't think that. I think the voters just overlook it. It just kind of ties in, and the Lakers will be the 3rd seed or 4th seed, minimum. So that's where perfect for AD to win Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Monroe mentions Anthony Davis, so I think it's fair to have him win this award. This one should be easy. Rookie of the Year. I believe we're all going with the same player, Wembanyama. Honorable mention.
Chet. My honorable mention would. I've been kind of juggling between Chet and Scoot. I think it's gonna be Scoot just because he's gonna have full reins of that Portland Trailblazers team. I think just because of the team being quite young and they're gonna have him as their starting point guard. Chet is not gonna be able to put up gaudy numbers on that OKC team. I think he'll put a relatively humble 15, 16, 8, 9 rebounds with two blocks a game. I think which is good enough again for a Rookie of the Year campaign. But Wembanyama exists. Nah, there is some other rookies that exist around the league.
For surely Wemby's number 1, but Chet's number 2.
What are some other rookies that have the potential to enter themselves in the conversation? I mean, because last year we saw J-Dub make it, we saw Walker Kessler make the discussion.
I kind of like what Amen is going to be able to bring. I think one of the Thompson twins. I think more of Amen because I think just because of him being a point guard, he's going to be on the ball a lot more and. Eventually we're going to see a situation where he gets heavy minutes in that lineup with Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green because, he's built like a small forward, even though he's a point guard. You have Ausar Thompson. I don't think Jarris Walker is going to be enough of a contributor because, you have Obi Toppin there. You have a bunch of guys in Indiana. But I really think one of the Thompson twins definitely have a shot at winning Rookie of the Year. But it feels like this is kind of like a one-legged Rookie of the Year and everybody else is kind of just chasing Wemby.
Yeah, it's Wemby number 1, but Chet, man, I feel like Chet can average 18, 8, and like 3 blocks.
18? All right, bro. Let's pump the brakes a little bit.
I mean, 18 points is not that much in this NBA now.
We have the biggest Chet believer in the house, and he doesn't. I don't even think he believes Chet.
I have him at like 16
points.
I have him at like 16. That's only because I you have Shea there. You have Josh Giddey who averages about 18. You have J-Dub who's probably going to take a leap as well.
Giddey's stats about to go down. He got to make some way for Chet. He ain't averaging 18 again this
year. Chet's not going to come into the league.
Average 18. If Giddey can average 18, I promise you Chet can.
What is Wembanyama going to average if Chet's averaging 18?
I really think Wemby's going to
I really believe 23. On a 35 minute a night, he's averaging 23. Like 23, 24, 25.
Okay. Like I have Wemby making All NBA year 1.
Yeah.
Like I really believe Wembanyama's gonna. Like I kind of when I was coming into this season during the summer, I kind of was thinking, he might be averaging a humble 17. Nah. Then I looked at the preseason, I'm like, yo, this guy's gonna average like 23 because forget the shot creation because everybody was talking about the shot creation is gonna eventually land with him. he's just off the play finishing, the lobbing, the lob threat that he is, and just finishing over guys. That's enough as it
Bro,
is.
it's not
Then
even
you
that.
add in the fact that he can shoot. It's just what?
Defensively, even on the defensive side of the ball, even after the blocks and everything, it's just the fast breaks and how fast he can get down on that fast break. He's one of the first two down there, and it's always a 2-on-1 or 3-on-1. He's leading the fast break. Guys, it's gonna be fun to see him play. I believe
The
he can
only
average
thing, the
35.
only question mark I have is how much Pop is gonna play Wemby. I think he's gonna be very kind of careful with how he operates with Wembanyama, but with the Rookie of the Year
The preseason though,
awards is what 65 games now. I think.
Yeah, there's a cap now on these awards.
Preseason,
I think 65 games he can. Pop might let him hit it.
Yeah, I feel like he can. Yeah, he's gonna play a lot, but Wemby's gonna be nice.
Damn, 23 points and all NBA in year one. This
He
freak
made
of
it-
nature of an athlete,
He's
man.
that defensive team too. Don't forget it.
This guy's gonna have himself a hell of a rookie year if he's able to live up to
And all
live
NBA
up
is
to it all.
positionless now, so there's that as well.
That's ridiculous, man. Moving on from Rookie of the Year, now we move on to Coach of the Year.
Okay, this one I have Frank Vogel winning this, just because I think the Suns are gonna finish the second seed, and I don't think they're gonna give it to Michael Malone. I think it makes sense that they give it to Frank Vogel. I think he's gonna have the Suns playing, a lot better, especially on the defensive end, better than people think. I think people are kind of underrating that the role players that the Suns kind of just picked up here and there. I think they'll be a lot better on that end than people think. And Frank Vogel's a defensive coach. And my honorable mention is Mark Dagnall from OKC. Last year he was in contention for it just because of what he was able to do with that line. That's such a young team, especially without a center like Chad. Now this year they're going to be looking to compete. It could also be Minnesota. They burned me last year when I picked Chris Finch to win it. So I don't think I'm gonna double down, but if I had a second honorable mention, it would be them. I think that they have to put it together.
I got Darvin Ham. No honorable mention.
No honorable mention, just straight like that.
I believe we can get above 52 wins. Above 52 wins this year, healthy and everything. I believe
Who won last year? Mike Brown?
I think Mike
Yeah,
Brown
You
won.
give it to Mike Brown?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, for me, my Coach of the Year, it's very similar to Big H's. I do have Darvin Ham winning the Coach of the Year, and then my honorable mention.
But the Bucks do
definitely
have a new coach though, right? So
Adrian Griffin. Now, my question to you guys was going to be like, how much credit are they going to give to him if they're able to win the same amount of games as they did last year? Are they going to give credit to him, or are they just going to give credit to that roster that they got? Because Mike Budenholzer left them at 57 wins, and if they're still hovering around the same,
I don't think they're going to give it. I don't think they're going to give him a crazy amount of credit.
The issue is them getting over that playoff hump now.
Yeah,
and that comes with coaching. I felt like Budenholzer last year, he had some mistakes in those playoffs that especially in that Miami series.
Underrated one is the Indiana Pacers head coach. I think
Rick Carlisle.
Rick Carlisle could have a shot at it. If they end up being a 4th, 5th seed, he could have a shot at it.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, if they could push that 48 wins in that East and be that potential 4th to 3rd seed, yeah.
If OKC take another leap, then I can see their coach Mark Dagnall winning as well. But they're gonna have to take another leap from what they did last year. For me, yeah, Darvin Ham and then Frank Vogel. 6th man of the year. Who do we got?
I have Jonathan Kuminga winning this. My honorable mention, Norman Powell.
Malik Monk. Honorable mention. Ooh. Who's another good bench piece that is going to be contributing to a starting lineup that's going to push him to a playoff spot?
There's Quickly. There's.
I was going to say Quickly,
but I don't know if Derek White is starting or not. He is starting, I believe.
Yeah,
so
White
could be Malcolm Brogdon.
Brogdon's on Portland, huh?
Yeah, and he's not going to start.
He ain't going to start.
I don't know if they're. I don't know if
they're not going to have enough wins.
Yeah. I'll say Kuminga. I don't like the Warriors, but it's time that he takes that next step forward for the team. And like I said, Chris Paul leading that bench unit. If he can help and contribute to Kuminga's growth, it's going to be big addition. And I'm still surprised that Draymond really hasn't taken him under his wing and try to teach him and make him a better player. But
He's scared of getting punched.
That's
bro.
a bully. That's a bully,
Oh,
man.
man.
He's,
That's-
he's
No,
scared.
hey,
He's,
each
he's
his
scared
own,
of
man.
getting. He's scared of getting punched. Can you blame him?
I don't blame Kuminga for not trying to work out with him on his spare time. So,
it's
but
not a,
Kuminga,
it's not a guy you want to be around, bro.
that is true.
For me though, I'm going Malik Monk for sure as my 6th man of the year winner. And then
Hey,
my
you
honorable
need
mention.
notes, man.
Yeah,
Relax.
you copy my notes, bro. But my honorable mention is definitely Jonathan Kuminga. But the only thing is, I can see Malik. The only reason why I can see Malik Monk winning this is that I feel like coming off the bench, this guy's gonna average an easy 18 points per game. Like
He gets starter minutes. That's the funny part. Coming off the bench, he gets 30 minutes, 32 minutes a game. So it's easy Lou Williams stat line.
so like he's gonna be able to put up 18 points per game with ease just based on the fact that he's gonna be playing so much. For Jonathan Kuminga, I just don't know what he has to average in order for him to win this award. Like maybe somewhere around like coming off the bench, giving you 14 to 16 points per game. I just don't know, because if it comes down to that, then they're going to start taking into account the wins and the losses, and I'm not too sure if the Warriors are going to have a lot more wins than a team like the Sacramento Kings. But those are definitely my top 2 candidates for 6th man of the year.
Wait, Big H, is Rui Hachimura starting, right?
Nah, he's coming off the bench.
Mm.
I forgot about
Why would Rui come off the bench? Oh, he is coming off the bench.
Yeah, we're going with
I think you guys are going with Reeves and D'Lo in the backcourt.
and Tarian Prince and LeBron and AP.
I mean, is Rui such a
Dude,
bad?
what? All right, relax. Taurean Prince over Rui?
I'm pretty sure Tarian Prince is starting. I'm 100% sure he started tomorrow against the Nuggets.
What type of starting
It was
five
either
is
that,
that, bro?
it was either him or it was Vanderbilt, but I'm pretty sure we went with Prince as a starter.
Isn't Vanderbilt hurt right now?
I think Vanderbilt's hurt, but when he comes back, he's going to be starting.
Okay, then that makes sense. See that threw me off for a little bit. There's no reason Taurean Prince should be
off the
starting.
bench, though, that's another good option for 6 man.
What about Kelly Oubre? Now, don't laugh. Genuinely think about it.
I have one question. What team does he play for?
He plays for the Sixers.
No, bro.
Nah.
You're not. Now you're joking.
No,
Now
but
you're
think about it
pissed,
though.
bro.
Last year with the Hornets, he averaged what, like 19, 20, whatever. He was the first option. It doesn't matter. Now he's coming off the bench for a Philly team that could be a top 4 seed. What's stopping him from potentially winning a 6 man of the year? Unless they really start him, which I think they probably should. I mean, they have fucking 40-year-old PJ Tucker.
They gotta let go.
What did he average last year?
Like, I'm pretty sure when he was playing with the Hornets, it was like 19 a game or something like that, or 20. I'd have to check that, but something like that.
I can go ahead and fact check that right now. I don't know, man.
He averaged 20. Wow,
20 points. Wow.
But he was the de facto number one option with LaMelo out, basically.
Okay, I take back my laughing remark. I think he can definitely be a candidate, but with James Harden now, does that insert him into the starting lineup? What is the lineup going to look like without James Harden for the beginning of the season?
I mean, does that just mean DeAnthony Melton is going to be a starter then?
Well, they still have him, so they put him and Maxey in the backcourt. They still have Tobias.
Yeah,
they're not going to play Kelly.
Don't tell me fucking PJ Tucker, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I think PJ Tucker probably will start, but
yeah,
alongside Embiid.
It's gonna be Pat Bev, Maxey, PJ Tucker, Harris.
Milton the 6 man, but that's the smallest backcourt of all time. So
Pat Bev a dog though. It don't matter how short he is.
I mean, I think Kelly Oubre could be a candidate. I think now that I think about it, because he's gonna have the freedom to do whatever if it's just him and Maxey in the backcourt and alongside all the other guys. I mean, then obviously you still have Tobias Harris there, but Kelly Oubre is still going to be able to find his. So that's another good candidate. I kind of view him in the same light as like Norman Powell, but I probably put Norman Powell ahead of him. Now, last award on this list, we have the Most Improved Player award.
This one, I hate the fact that they give it to top overall draft picks, but like I still have this guy winning it. I have Cade Cunningham winning it. I'm not I used to think about the fact that guys would be able to win it even if they're their top draft picks, and now I'm kind of on the other side of the spectrum where I'm not a big fan of it. But I kind of I've embraced the fact that Cade Cunningham's gonna have a big year. I think he's gonna have a bounce back year. I think he's gonna have an all-star level year. A guy who he was dealing with a foot injury. He's dealing with a shin injury. It's kind of hampering his shooting ability. I think now him healthy and him being the leader of this team, I think he's going to be able to put together a really, really strong season. My honorable mention is going to be Mikal Bridges. Whether he can sustain, I'm not even expecting him to sustain that level of play that he had when he first came to Brooklyn. But, something where he's averaging 23, 24, because he is going to be the number one option. I think that's going to be enough to be able to push him in that most improved player of the year discussion.
Oh, for me, yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you on the Cade Cunningham part. I do believe, him. I think he does take that leap into being an all-star. I think he does take that leap to being the star of the Pistons, and rightfully so. He's shown flashes and glimpses. We've seen him produce. We've seen him show. We've seen him hoop, and now they have a much, much better roster than the roster that he was on almost necessarily 2 seasons ago, since he didn't play last year. I mean, it's a much different type of roster. I feel like they got much better pieces around him, and he's gonna step in and take that next step. I feel like it's time for him. Third year in the league. I feel like last year was the year. Barring injury, those first couple games he was hooping, and it's bad to see injuries happen. But season-ending injury. I feel like this year he's gonna come back. And he's gonna dominate. So I got him one, and then another guy I already mentioned, Keegan Murray. So he's gonna take that next step, and Mike Brown's gonna ask him a lot more. He's gonna ask him offensively and defensively, and I feel like rightfully so that he needs to be that guy for the team, and it can't be Harrison Barnes taking that shot, or it can't be, I forgot what's his name. Who's the starting shooting guard?
Kevin Huerter.
Kevin Huerter, yeah, that guy, horrible shooter. I promise you, playoffs he comes, that guy was just ice cold. And, he can't be, taking majority of the shots. He can't be having 15 shots a game. So like Keegan Murray has to have, that 15 shots a game. He got to be second to third option scoring wise, and I feel like he's gonna take that next step. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, my most improved player was either Mikal Bridges or Cade Cunningham. I won't go too in depth into the reasoning why. Everything you guys have said what I was going to say, but those two are my top 2 candidates. For number 1 for me is Mikal Bridges, and then number 2, Cade Cunningham as my honorable mention. Now that wraps up our NBA award predictions.
For me, Mikal Bridges, right? We've seen him come from the Suns to go to Brooklyn. We already seen him take that next step forward. What was the averaging on Phoenix? 17 points a game, 16 points a game to 24, 25 on Brooklyn? I mean, what's the next step forward for him to be?
I mean, he was averaging on the season like 21 or 20.
No, I'm just saying when he came to Brooklyn, like the average.
When he came to Brooklyn, he played 27 games, averaging 26 points. So I think it's not, when it comes to like taking a leap for a guy like Mikal Bridges, it's not so about, how many more points can he score than 26 during his stint with Brooklyn. It's more about consistency. Can we see him put it all together through a full season? Can we get a larger sample size, a larger body of work? So if he's able to continuously average 26 points per game, then by all means, I think he's well worthy enough to, earn that most improved player award. But, I think it's probably going to take something crazy for like Cade Cunningham absolutely going crazy, having himself a very great year, to take an award from a guy like Mikal Bridges, who's shown us some flashes last year, but a lot of people had their questions whether or not he could sustain this for a full season. So that's kind of where I stand with it when I view Mikal Bridges in the light of winning the most improved player award, because obviously we saw him take the leap from Phoenix to Brooklyn, but now is he able to continue that going forward? But that wraps up our NBA award predictions. Now we move on to our NBA team predictions. We'll go ahead and talk about the biggest disappointments, the biggest overachievers, best offense, best defense, best record, and worst record. But this year we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. There's going to be absolutely no reasoning involved. We'll get to this. We'll get to our reasonings later on in the season as we go ahead and do a little recap halfway through the season. But no reasoning at all. Just go ahead and give us your prediction. Biggest disappointment for this upcoming season.
Oh, that's a hot one. But my biggest disappointment for this season. Okay, I'm gonna go with the New Orleans Pelicans. And this time, this team, I want them to be good so bad, and I know we saw them last season when they're the number 1 seed. That this team, that they're amazing with Zion at the head of it. You had Brandon Ingram second half of the season. We saw how good he is. This team has potential to be great when both of these stars share the floor. My thing is I just don't believe that Zion's going to be able to share the floor for with Brandon Ingram more than 35, 40 games a season. His inability to stay healthy, it's becoming impossible to be able to say, hey, Zion is going to play a full season. And so I think that they're going to disappoint people again. And if this is going to connect later with the hot takes, I think this team ends up blowing it all together. I think if Zion's unable to stay healthy, I think this is the last time we'll see him in New Orleans. So that's my biggest disappointment coming into the season.
My biggest disappointment is going to be Minnesota Timberwolves. My one reasoning is
I fucking hate that team because I always say they're going to do good.
Well, just go look at their payroll and how much guys are under contract and how much money they're making. They pay their guys. They're all young guys. They shouldn't fail. They have their stars. I just think they're going to be the biggest disappointment again. People think that, Minnesota's coming into this year. They're going to be the top 4 seed, top 5 seed. A lot of people have been saying that. A lot of people have been, gassing them up. To me, I just think they're going to be a disappointment again. Man, Karl-Anthony Towns is not a superstar. One of the softest NBA players I've seen.
You don't got faith in Anthony Edwards?
And Edwards, man, he look like a guy. He vibe with it.
That's going to take a leap. He's going to take a leap. We can definitely all agree on that.
Take a leap, but he got 2 twin towers that going to hold him back. He got Gobert Towns that going to hold him back.
My thing is, are we sure Anthony Edwards is going to take a leap? I mean, this season, weren't we expecting Anthony Edwards to take that quote-unquote leap that we were talking about? Like, what is a leap for Anthony Edwards realistically? Like, what does that look like?
For me, the leap to me is 28, 29. To me, is you want to be in that conversation to be one of the best shooting guards in the league. I got to see you put up some stat numbers like Shea. I got to see you be the best player on your team night on and night off that court. Every single night, you got to be that number one player. And last year, it wasn't really that case.
What did he average last year?
He averaged 20. He averaged 24 last year, and that was with majority of the season being without Karl-Anthony Towns.
It's more for him. He was having more shots and everything. I feel like
I needed like a 26, 27 type of season from Ant. That's what I need.
That's what he's gonna. That's what I think he's gonna put out for sure. Because I think now
I want an all NBA level season from Anthony Edwards. That's what I want. All NBA level season from Anthony Edwards.
Best shooting guard type season. Like, you got to claim that spot. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like defensively,
I think he's going to be in the conversation for sure.
Defensively, he's going to be up there though. Defensively, I feel like he's going to take that next leap as well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see Anthony Edwards taking that leap that people were expecting him to take last year, because I think that him and the Minnesota Timberwolves have a better understanding on who this team really belongs to. It's no longer Karl-Anthony Towns' team anymore. This is the Anthony Edwards team. This is the Anthony Edwards show. It's Anthony Edwards, and everybody around him are just co-stars and just co-partners, just playing their role in the show of Anthony Edwards. And so, for me, I think Anthony Edwards does take that leap. But for me, to get back to my biggest disappointment, as I've already talked about earlier, I have the Memphis Grizzlies. I'll get to them in a little bit. But the reason why I just don't think they'll be able to be the same team that they were last year, just based on the fact that Ja Morant will be suspended for those first 25 games. Biggest overachievers.
The Indiana Pacers, easily for me. I think they're going to overachieve a lot this season. Like we mentioned, and we've gone in depth about them, they have a fun roster. Simple as that.
This one's tough. Yeah, I'm going to have to agree. I'd be on the Indiana Pacers. I feel like every other team that we've seen in the past, or like last season, similar, they, except the Knicks, I feel like last year Knicks were, overachievers, but I'm not going to say this year. I feel like Indiana's going to be that team that's going to be overachievers.
Looks like we're all going to be agreeing on the topic for once. I have the Indiana Pacers as well. Best offense in the league.
I was juggling between two teams on this, but I'm gonna go with the Milwaukee Bucks on this one. I think that combination of having Damian Lillard, who was a top 5 offensive player last season, arguably top 3. Just how he played. That stretch from January to March was just unbelievable level of basketball. You pair that shooting ability alongside a guy like Giannis, who's an offensive engine, a guy who's able to get to the cup every single time. I think that combination, plus the shooting that they have around them with Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez, man, they're the best offense in the league to me.
I take Boston. I got Boston. I think, Porzingis getting that floor spacing. I feel like just, Tatum, for me, picking him as MVP this year, I think he takes that, not necessarily that next step forward, but just to be more efficient on the offensive side of the ball, him and Jaylen Brown.
For me, I'm going to go Phoenix Suns, just based on the fact that
you're my other team as well.
I've talked about their three-headed snake that they got: Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant. It's pretty much as simple as that. Best defense in the league.
This was between two teams for me. It was between Milwaukee and the Lakers, but I'm gonna lean a little bit more to the Lakers. I got the Lakers being the number one defense last season. They're phenomenal on that, and especially when AD was able to stay healthy. I think this season now, if AD is able to, stay healthy for the rest of the season, he's able to play a good amount of games that they could be one of the top defenses in the entire league. So I got the Lakers at number one.
I got Lakers as best defense in the league, baby. We're gonna stay healthy. AD defensive player of the year. We're going straight to the finals.
Looks like we're agreeing once again. I do have the Los Angeles Lakers being the best defensive team. My honorable mention would be Boston, though. I feel like if those guys can regain their identity that they had with Ime Udoka, they can be competing for the best defense. Moving on to the. What were you gonna say, Big H?
Nah, I kind of do agree with you, but they did lose some key pieces on the defensive side of the ball.
They also did gain Drew Holiday. So, best record in the league.
I got the Milwaukee Bucks with the best record in the league. I got them winning 59 games.
I think Boston tops that with 60.
I'm going to go ahead and go Boston just based on the fact that because I have Jason Tatum winning MVP, I do think these guys are going to win a lot of games. Worst record in the league, 3, 2, 1.
Charlotte.
Utah. That's not what I was going for, but I have the Utah Jazz.
I have Charlotte.
Charlotte and Utah. I don't think I agree with y'all. I think the Wizards.
It was either going to be the Wizards or Portland. It was either going to be Wizards or Charlotte for me. So
I honestly think you guys are forgetting how the Wizards were playing last year with Bradley Beal being out for the majority of the season.
Bradley Beal played like 50 games. Porzingis was pretty damn good, and they had Kuzma.
What's the difference between like the scoring output they're going to get from a guy like Bradley Beal and from a guy like Jordan Poole? Like what? It's not that big of a difference.
Porzingis was basically playing at an all-star level. They had Beal that was playing about 50 games, 23 points per game, and they had Kuzma averaging about 20. So they had about 65 points combined from those three guys. I think, like, relatively, I don't think you're going to be able to replicate that with this roster.
Tell me where you're getting the defense from.
I don't know where they're getting the defense from, man. But they got some heavy hitters on offense. You got Kuzma and Jordan Poole is going to be a show, but I don't think they'll be worse than the Utah Jazz, man. Like,
I can't saying
outside of Lauri Markkanen,
Kuzma was crazy.
Kuzma did pretty well for him. They did pretty well for themselves.
Kuzma don't care about nothing but scoring, though. That's why he's flashing. Come with the tunnel.
That's all he does. That's all he does, though. That's all you need, right?
I mean, I don't know.
I thought we'd all agree on the Utah Jazz, though. These guys have absolutely nobody.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Now we move on from our NBA team predictions. It's finally time to make our NBA Finals predictions. Who do we have making the NBA Finals, and who do we have winning, and why?
So I have the Milwaukee Bucks making the NBA Finals, going up against the Phoenix Suns. I think I'll end up having the Milwaukee Bucks winning this. The reason being is that the Phoenix Suns, the offense now, level of efficiency that they're going to be on with having these three guys on the roster is just going to be absolutely insane. As much as I'm not a fan of them, I think when you look at this team, especially with going back to that playoff series, when you rewatch it against Denver Nuggets, a lot of the guys that were outside, whether that's Chris Paul, whether if it was Ish Wainwright, whether it was Josh Okogie, whether it was Torrey Smith, like all these guys, they weren't efficient outside shooters when surrounding guys like KD and Devin Booker. Now that you surround a guy like Bradley Beal, who's going to be able to be a reliable isolation scorer, he's going to be a corner shooter. They added some decent depth. I think that they're going to be a team that's going to be tough to kind of stop. I don't rate their defense highly, but it's enough that I believe that they can produce efficient enough offense. And so I got the Milwaukee Bucks eventually winning this. Like I mentioned about that combination between Giannis and Dame, they went all in with this, and they have Brook Lopez, who's a defensive player of the year caliber type of player, and Chris Middleton. People are not understanding that Chris Middleton is now going to be the third option on that team, and that's very underrated for a shot maker like Chris Middleton. So I got the Milwaukee Bucks winning it all.
For me, I got Boston, and I got the Lakers. One for Boston is I just think Drew Holiday, when he sees Damian Lillard, is just going to clamp his shit. Simple as that. I feel like, in the past he has, and in the future, I think, when Boston sees the Bucks in the playoffs, Drew Holiday is going to be on Dame's case, and he's going to disappear. Dame's not going to be, a help to Giannis. And for me, I'm just going to pick Boston's other four than the Bucks' other four. I feel like these last couple years in the playoffs, I feel like Giannis, when it comes to the clutch games and the big games and the, close games, he kind of shies away from the moment. He kind of goes ghost, or he doesn't show up. He takes a lot of shots. He doesn't make them. Defensively, he's hiding. Offensively, he's not consistent. I just feel like, this Boston team with Holiday and Tatum and Brown and Porzingis, I feel like they just got too much firepower. And then Lakers, baby, I feel like health-wise coming in this year, we're going to be healthy. LeBron's going to be Bron. AD is going to take that next step. And our supporting roster, I feel like our supporting roster is much, much better than it was these last couple of years. Going back to 2020, we haven't had a supporting cast like this. I feel like it's even better than the 2020 supporting cast. And I just feel like, this is the year AD comes back and just, plays a lot this year. I feel like, the all NBA team, all-star, MVP, defensive player of the year, it's all in discussion for him. And, just throw the cherry on top. I had a finals to that. So I got my Lakers winning, baby.
My NBA Finals prediction is very similar to yours, Big H. I have the Los Angeles Lakers going up against the Boston Celtics, and I have the Lakers winning this series in 6 games. I think LeBron James caps off his career with the 5th NBA championship, really cements his legacy as the greatest player of all time. My reason for the Los Angeles Lakers are coming out of the Western Conference. Number one, I just feel like their roster construction this past offseason, they did an excellent job at acquiring guys that they need to fill their roster. They're able to retain a lot of their guys. They re-signed Austin Reeves. They re-signed Rui. They were able to get D'Lo back. Now you add Gabe Vincent into the mix. Now they have some rotational guys that they can play, they can rely on. You also have LeBron James and AD. Even though these guys did get swept against the Denver Nuggets last year, their roster got significantly better. And so I think these guys, once they're able to mesh and get things going, like we saw last year in post-trade deadline, in the second half of the season, you guys were able to make a run for the Western Conference Finals. Now I think they kind of get over that hump with all of these free agent acquisitions. And then for the Boston Celtics, it was really a toss-up between these guys and the Milwaukee Bucks. I think the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be right there with them. I do think people should expect a defensive drop-off for them just based on the fact that they did lose a key piece in Drew Holiday. I understand you added a guy like Damian Lillard who could, obviously help the scoring side of the ball with a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo. But at the end of the day, I just trust the Boston Celtics defense a lot more. I think adding Drew Holiday was a huge plus for them, a team that I did say that Drew Holiday should go to, and Boston Celtics should have won that sweepstakes, and they did. They add Kristaps Porzingis into the mix, and I expect Jason Tatum to have himself an MVP season, and I expect him to carry that over as the playoffs go on. So Lakers and Boston Celtics rematch, obviously it's a classic, as we all know, but I do have the Lakers coming out on top and winning this one in 6. And now we move on to our final topic of this episode, NBA hot takes. I'm looking forward to hearing what we all have to say, but what is your hottest take going into this NBA season?
My hottest take is the Warriors will miss the playoffs. I think this is the year that it finally collapses for the Warriors. Steph Curry is an unbelievable player, but I don't think it's enough to carry this roster. Clay's too inconsistent. His play goes up and down. Draymond's not a scoring option. Chris Paul, he's washed. I don't think that this roster has particularly positive depth. When I look at it, I think this team is a far cry from, the team that they were in the past. And so I truly believe that the Warriors are just going to end up missing the playoffs. This is not the team that everybody's accustomed to. It's not. I don't think it's even as good in terms of depth as they were a couple years ago. I just think that they're just washed.
My hottest take. Clippers going to miss the playoffs. Kawhi and PG, they're going to boom it this season. And it's over. Kawhi's going to look for another, championship team. He's going to request a trade. PG's probably going to dip somewhere else. And the landscape of the NBA might change again. These two guys are still good. If they can stay healthy, but I just don't believe they're going to make the playoffs like that. Or even do anything if they do. But Kawhi and PG, this is their last years in Los Angeles colors.
My hottest take for this upcoming NBA season is Joel Embiid will request a trade from the 76ers mid-season. I just feel like where there's smoke, there's fire. There's a lot of rumors coming out as of late saying that Joel Embiid will be on the market and the New York Knicks are looking at him. I'm not saying that he's going to go to the New York Knicks, but I do believe that he will no longer be a Philadelphia 76ers at the end of this season. I just think with the way this team has been going, obviously they have the James Harden drama going on with him not being present at training camp and ready to go for the start of the season. The Philadelphia 76ers inability to get over the hump, to get past the second round. I think Joel Embiid is going to finally understand that this isn't the team that's going to be able to take him over the top. Obviously the MVP is nice. The numbers in the regular season are nice. Everything was all nice, but at the end of the day, how are we going to remember Joel Embiid as an NBA player? How are we going to remember him, when his career is all said and done? And I think as of right now, his legacy isn't the greatest. He hasn't been able to make it past the second round. He hasn't been to the Eastern Conference Finals once, let alone the NBA Finals. And this is a guy that I've been on, for many years now, especially last season when he won the MVP award, not getting past the second round one more time. And so I feel like this is the year where Joel Embiid realizes that, the Philadelphia 76ers isn't the franchise that he wants to stick with for the rest of his career. I understand he's got all the money and everything like that, but he's going to be looking for a new home. And I think the Joel Embiid sweepstakes will be the next sweepstakes on the market. And a lot of teams are going to come buying. A lot of teams are going to come calling. So that's my hottest take for the 2023-2024 NBA season. A couple of other hot takes that I have on my list, though.
What's funny is I had that same Joel Embiid one. I said Philly's going to blow it up with Joel Embiid. I think, but the thing is, though, is that, I don't know if I can see that happening mid-season, though, just because I think that they're going to be good enough where they're going to be like a 4th or 5th seed where Joel Embiid's just going to end up deciding to, I think if anything, the Joel Embiid drama will happen in next offseason versus, mid-season. I don't know. I just don't see a situation where they end up blowing it up with Joel Embiid and they trade him or he requests out mid-season. I just can't see that happening.
Hey, you never know, man. These guys could get relatively worse than what they were last year if James Harden isn't able to show up. So it's really all in the hands of James Harden, because if they get James Harden's back, they're pretty much going to be the same team. But I still believe the rumors and the drama will still be there going into the next offseason. But if he's not there and these guys aren't able to compete, there is some room for this guy to request a trade. But another one of my hot takes for sure is the Pelicans will trade Brandon Ingram or Zion at the deadline. That's one. LeBron James is going to miss his first All NBA since his rookie year. The Houston Rockets will be a playing team. That's just one of my fly on the wall. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, the Memphis Grizzlies will miss the playoffs. So
that's kind of mine with the Spurs. My hottest of the hottest takes would be that Wemby uplifts them to a playing team. I think that they have a decent enough roster to be a 12th seed. Maybe fight for that 11th and move up to 10, because they have Wemby, they have Devin Vassell, they have Keldon Johnson, and Zach Collins, who's a very underrated big man. I think that's kind of just they could potentially be a playing team. It just really depends on how good Wemby is. The same thing with me with Zion and Brandon Ingram. I really think that they're going to end up splitting this pairing. My take about the Clippers is the complete opposite. I unironically think the Clippers this is going to be the year that they end up being healthy for once, and they end up making it to the Western Conference Finals. I think this is going to be the one year that Kawhi and PG are on a prove-it year. This is the last time that they're going to be together, potentially, because if they end up getting injured again or they're just not able to do anything, they're 100% gone. There's no way that they're going to run it back with the same team. So I think this is going to be the year the Clippers have to put it together.
Yeah, I have the same thoughts when it comes to the Pelicans. But the Clippers, though, the thing is, they're going into this, not this season, but next season, going into their new stadium. They're moving out of Staples Center. So you think the Clippers are going to go into their new stadium without their two franchise guys in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, even if this season ends up ending the same way as last year and the years before?
I think they do, honestly. I honestly think that they do, just because it's just they've tried this experiment. It's been this way since 2020. The bubble, they had that major choke. 2021, Kawhi gets hurt. 2022, they're injured again. 2023, injuries again with Kawhi Leonard. And they imagine again this year happens. They're at that point, what are they gonna do? Maybe they end up retaining Paul George or one of them, but I really think that they end up splitting both. They get rid of both these guys and just usher in a new era. They get their picks wherever they can and they restart this team, because it's worrisome for this team to continue to try the same thing over and over again. I think at that point they have to try and start a new era.
I guess there's only one way to find out. But that pretty much wraps up our episode for tonight. Those are all our hot takes going into the 2023-2024 NBA season. Any final words before we sign off here?
NBA League Pass is ass. The worst thing. There's no point in copying it. Just stick to y'all Stream East, man.
Let's go Lakers, baby.
Right. Hey man, there's a couple of teams that I do want to watch this year, man. So I think I might have to purchase League Pass, man. But of course, like I said in the beginning of this episode, I'm a huge fan of NBA. I'm excited that the NBA is back. It's finally something that I can watch on a day-to-day basis instead of having to wait from Sunday to Sunday to watch football. But of course, the NBA season coming on and being back, of course, we'll be right here to talk about it all. With that being said, we'll go ahead and close out this episode here. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. We really appreciate your love and support. We greatly appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Media Podcast. And for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, all of our social media handles will be at the end of this video. And if you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, if you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to navigate yourself to all of our social media handles there. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Being out late, now that's overkill.